Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast The Storm, where social awkward outcasts, crazy riddles, and all around nerds convene, talk, and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co host, the Nerdiocopus, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Good evening, everyone.
And I am your host, this time Lord Wannabe, the Brainstorm of Pop Culture.
We had to delay it a couple days this week because, once again, life happened. Life's
Yeah,
been happening with stark regularity lately, it seems.
yeah. Um, yeah, this time it is on me. Um, due to personal matters, yeah, I guess I can talk about it. Uh, my my dog, who I've had for the past nearly a decade, um, unfortunately, she passed, or more so, be she had to be put down, unfortunately, because she had gotten to the point. It was to the point where she had to be put down, um, because she was gotten really sick and was obviously in a lot of pain, and we just could not. We were very much incapable of taking care of her at this point because, like, she was just. It was just a bad sight, honestly. That happened on Saturday, so that's why Sunday I didn't really feel up to it, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Monday I was still kind of not feeling it, and also other things that Dalton had also a previous engagement and stuff. So we just
Yeah.
kind of agreed that yesterday was also not a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of getting over it more now, I suppose. Still, the wound's still kind of fresh, obviously, but I want to give you guys a podcast. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
haven't we haven't missed a week in almost 2.5 years. We're not about to start now.
yeah. So yeah, just it's been kind of a long. It's been really just like the whole last week was just really emotional turmoil for my family with our dog, and yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
like I said, I'm just hoping like tonight we have a good one, and kind of moving past that as hard.
The show must go on. The show must go on.
Okay, that just sounds like such a dick thing to say. Dalton, I'm just saying.
Sorry.
Are you though? Are you really?
Yes, because this was important to you, and I'm sorry if my meme came at the wrong moment there.
Yeah. So yeah, we're. To be fair, this is probably going to be a short stream. We only have like 3 articles, but they should give us enough time to discuss and stuff. Yeah. Shall we?
We shall.
Yeah. So the first one, I think this is one I sent.
Mm-hmm.
It's from CBR.com. Bruce Wayne's story would be more powerful and very different if Bruce Wayne was black. This was by Devin Foster. This was published August 2nd, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Huh, I could have sworn this was last week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, this is one I wanted to cover because I thought it was interesting. Also, the title is very stupid.
Yes.
All right, so tag subheader is thanks to Jason Fox, DC has a black Batman, but that story would be even more powerful with a black Bruce Wayne at its center. Okay. By full disclosure, like for Dalton, and feel free to add anything or
Mm-hmm.
discredit me if I did something wrong. He's obviously not like a big Batman fan.
No. I mean more probably than I am a Superman fan, because Batman was probably my introduction to like superheroes when I was very, very, very young.
Um, yeah. To be fair, he's also to be fair, like Dalton is more into the more obscure and more weird superheroes and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
Batman,
I don't really have a skin in this particular game as far as character loyalty goes.
no, but
This is still mind-numbingly stupid
oh
because
yeah. For me, and like full disclosure, like I am a Batman fan, but not as like big as I was when I was first growing up because he and Spider-Man and also Spawn in a way were kind of my gateway to superheroes.
Mhm.
Um, like well, Dawn, I'm sure was the animated series for you. I grew up on like uh,
Well, first it was actually the Burton movies,
yeah, that makes
because I had both of those on VHS, which should tell you how long ago this was.
hmm I grew up on like well, I grew up on reruns of the animated series, but more so the New Adventures of Batman
Hmm.
and the Batman cartoon in 2004.
Yeah, the Batman, which was the CW, I believe, or
Uh,
WB back when it was still WB.
yeah. Um,
Which I watched as well. It's just that wasn't my first exposure to Batman. My first exposures were the Burton movies and then eventually the animated series.
yeah. So, sorry. But like I said, he was my introduction. But as I've gotten older, it's kind of a character that I'm not super connected to on a personal level, as I found more. He Batman is very much a cynical hero,
Hmm.
for obvious reasons. If you know who Batman is,
Yeah.
and
Insert my parents are dead meme here.
yeah, and it just seems he's always like very well. He is more because it is DC, and compared to DC and Marvel, DC is the more optimistic of superhero universes.
Hmm.
I've find myself relating more and more to Superman as I look more into the character.
Hmm.
Um,
And for me, it was a very similar progression, except I found myself relating more to characters like um, Doctor Fate, Doctor Strange, Dream of the Endless, Constantine, and
the question.
all of all of the the weird and obscure comic book characters. And as far as like detectives go, I actually prefer, like Brainstormer was about to say, the question to Batman. I think I and I know I'm about to commit comic book heresy here, but I think the question is a better detective than Batman, and moreover, so is Detective Chimp. And
Right.
again, I realized I launched the crusade of 1,000 pitchforks and torches, but
honestly, honestly, it makes more sense because on the fact that no one really focuses a lot on Batman's detective work.
no, and that is part of the problem. They don't allow him to be a detective, and when they do allow him to be a detective, it's always I've plugged this information into the Bat computer, and the Bat computer figured it out for me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
not to say that there aren't good Detective Batman stories. There are. It's just
yeah, there are, and I like when he is allowed to be more of the detective. But
they're very few and far between.
yeah, and in terms of the old-fashioned A plus B equals C, therefore D approach to detection, like deduction and observation and that sort of thing, without the fancy computers and the gadgets and the science bullshit. I again would prefer somebody more like the Question or Detective Chimp to Batman.
Yeah, that's fair.
And for further explication of this, watch the question-centric episode of Justice League, and you'll know exactly what I mean. Because that is one of the best comic book character portrayals, period, in my opinion, and it shows just how badass the Question can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I'm still kind of tired. Also, they mentioned Jace Fox, who's like the new or the next Batman from like Future State. Interesting character as I've looked into him. I haven't read the comics because when I wanted to get the comics when they came out, they were like $14 an issue.
There are literal trades less expensive than that. I can get you the entire Robert E. Howard run.
15. They were 15, nearly $15, $14.99.
Okay, yeah. So I can literally get you the entire Robert E. Howard run of Solomon Kane for that. And that was the other thing I noticed as I grew up and I learned more actually about the history of comics and such, is I found myself drawn to characters more like Solomon Kane, The Shadow, Elric of Malvibene. Basically, me and Razor Fist appear to have very similar tastes as far as old school comics go.
But the videos I've seen where they like talk about the comic and the story and the character, he is an interesting Batman in terms of a legacy character. But he's still a relatively new character, and also like there have been, like they haven't taken on the mantle of Batman, but you had Batwing, who has multiple characters who inherited that. Again, it's just like it's a weird thing. Is like Batman is well. Let's get into it because we haven't really. Yeah. Okay. The origin of Batman might be the most famous story in comics. After a mugger pulls a gun on Thomas and Martha Wayne and kills them both in Gotham City's crime alley, young Bruce Wayne is filled with a fiery desire for vengeance that would fuel him to become Batman. And now Batman operates both as a world-class savior with the Justice League and also as a violent vigilante who draws ire from the Gotham Police Department and the fearful respect of Gotham's criminals.
I mean, does he really draw ire? I mean, in some stories, sure, but in just as many, if not more, he works with the police.
I mean, primarily from Bullock.
Yeah.
But I can also see
and also what's her name? Detective Chen, right?
That would be from the show, from the Batman. They really need to introduce that character in the comics.
They should, because I assume they already did.
I have no idea. I haven't seen her. Also, dude, that character is. Did you? I never got why they like took her out after season 2.
Also, can you imagine a comic where Harvey Bullock and Detective Chin work together?
No, Yin, Detective
Or
L.
Yin,
Yin.
rather. Yeah. But yeah, Detective Yin and Harvey Bullock working together and oh my God, what if Commissioner Gordon made them partners?
I feel like Yin is kind of a take on Montoya, though.
A bit, yeah.
Hmm.
But she's still an awesome character, and
Oh yeah,
especially now that Montoya has kind of taken over the mantle of the Question, there's a gap for a character like her in that role. So
yeah.
if Harley Quinn can make a multimedia empire out of that one appearance she made in the animated series all those years ago, then we can definitely get Detective Yin in here.
Yeah. Oh fuck. Sorry, still kind of hard. I have nothing to say to that first part.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows the origin stories for Batman, Superman, the Hulk, Spider-Man, and the X-Men.
Iron Man.
Well, they know Iron Man's origin story because of the MCU and maybe the '90s animated series, but before then, he really wasn't a household name.
Fair enough.
Um, but I'm talking about you could walk up to somebody in freaking China, and they would be able to rattle you off, the origins for Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, the Hulk, and the X-Men, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. The origins of Batman have been explored in retcon ad nauseum over the past 70 years, but for all the countless angles that have been taken and Elseworlds takes told of Bruce Wayne's origin, few have asked what Batman might be to Gotham City if he was not the son of an endlessly privileged, rich white family. Oh my fucking god.
I knew they were going to go here. I knew from the get-go they were going to go here. Rich black people exist, right? We did have a president for 8 years that was a very, very wealthy black, well-to-do person. Guys,
Yeah,
not to
for the
not,
record, there is technically a black Batman in Marvel called Nighthawk, like a version of Nighthawk.
mhm.
And if you don't know who Nighthawk is, he's essentially, well, he's part of a group called the Squadron Supreme, which is like a darker take on the Justice League.
Their Marvels rip on DC basically.
Although they are really compelling, interesting characters, though.
They are. It's sort of like at Marvel going, well, yeah, well, we can tell stories like that in our universe with these characters. Yeah.
Mm,
Which side note, Mr. Feige, if you really, really want to stick it to DC, and I know you love sticking it to DC, I mean, you greenlit Civil War purely based on the fact that the opposition were doing BDS. So if you really want to show DC how it's done and how to write their own characters, Squadron Supreme, please.
right. But this,
Plus, that way you could do an in-universe version of Justice League versus Avengers if you felt like it.
right. Okay. But to be honest, the race thing never really was a factor for Bruce on the fact that it's just simply a child marked by tragedy.
Yeah, He doesn't find his own race to be important, and neither do most of the readers. Like he's not capital W white. Like he doesn't find his race to be important in any meaningful way. In fact, if anything, he probably relates more to the inner city black population of Gotham than he does people in his own like social circle.
Oh yeah, dude, he absolutely. I think he pretty much despise. Like he plays up the Playboy thing, but I think he despises most of the.
Yeah, he wears the ditzy playboy asshole mask as exactly that, a mask, so that no one puts two and two together.
Yeah, but I think he really doesn't want. Like if I remember Batman White Knight, the guy really doesn't like most of the snobby.
Yeah. And if we're going by a version of Kill Bill logic here, which, to be fair, Kill Bill, like Bill's actual speech about Superman in Kill Bill is stupid, but if we take that same metric for Batman, it actually makes more sense. Bruce Wayne's public face, among his rich contemporaries, is his commentary on how vapid and stupid he thinks they all are, if anything.
Yeah,
Because he's trying to fit in with the vapid, stupid rich brats. So yeah, if anything, Batman probably has more empathy for the inner city kids than he does his own class. In like revolutionary circles, they would probably refer to Bruce Wayne as a class traitor. He's like Elon Musk, basically.
hmm
Which, now that I say that, I want a universe where Elon Musk becomes Batman. And if Elon Musk ever sees this and decides that's a good idea because he's that kind of eccentric fucker, Godspeed, Mr. Musk.
hmm
Oh my god, I definitely
But also, like Dick Grayson, he wasn't wealthy. He was part of a circus, like a traveling circus. Same kind of similar origin of watching his parents die by the hands of criminals.
and Jason Todd was a street thug who thought it was a smart idea to try and steal the Batmobile or the rims of the Batmobile for street cred.
Yeah. Tim Drake, just a regular kid, actually, just really intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
The only one who's really a privileged kid is Damien, like Bruce's biological son.
Yeah, and he was raised by a group of sociopathic assassins.
Barbara Gordon is a working class kid.
Whose dad was a cop and
Yeah,
eventually rose to be the police commissioner. So
yeah.
she wanted to follow in his footsteps, and when she found out, slash, learned like the rest of the world that Batman existed and that her father worked with him, it became a natural progression from what she probably already wanted to do with her life. In an alternate universe where Batman doesn't exist in Gotham, Barbara Gordon basically is Karen Murphy from the Dresden Files.
Yeah. Um, Cassandra Cain, and there's actually like a video essay I watched about this character, like the actual Cassandra Cain, not the Cassandra Cain from Birds of Prey.
Mm-hmm.
Is more so actually like Batman's daughter and stuff. It's a whole video, and honestly, I should probably send it to you on
Mm-hmm.
it because it's really interesting. But yeah, like again, most of these kids that join Batman's family are not high society types.
Yeah, they're
Bruce really considers himself high society, more or less. I
they're
mean,
all underprivileged kids, usually touched by some kind of tragedy or crime,
mhm.
because he relates to that more than he relates to the the philanthropy brigade there.
Honestly, he might actually be the only genuine philanthropist in Gotham.
Yeah, because they're all mostly looking for backpats and public recognition and shit. Which side note, have you ever read a Batman comic where Bruce Wayne has to engage in some sort of public philanthropy? He
I
hates that shit. He doesn't even notice the credit that he gets for it, to be honest.
I've seen mostly like the cartoons when they delve into that.
And most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but he either does it for like to maintain the mask of, being the ditzy playboy, or
He does,
he
yeah. He usually
is
seems like genuinely invested in doing these things, like trying to find help with fundraisers and things.
yeah. The only time he does really get interested in that kind of philanthropy bullshit is when he actually is helping people.
Okay, moving forward.
Yep.
Although DC has flirted with the idea of a black Batman on a few occasions, the idea of a black Bruce Wayne is something that still remains largely unknown because there really is no point in changing his fucking skin color because it's not that important to the actual character.
Yeah, his
Like
skin
if he was
color is
okay,
not important.
hypothetical. Sorry.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Hypothetical. If they made Bruce Wayne black back in the 40s, one that would have been very groundbreaking, like a rich black man becoming a vigilante to stop crime. You think anyone would give a shit today?
Nope.
Like all the stories, but Bruce Wayne's black. All the stories of Batman still happen. Bruce Wayne is black. You think anyone?
No, it's literally just a dye job. Basically,
Yeah.
it's a
Although
coloring change more than anything.
If Tim Burton again, if we got into Black Bruce Wayne and people wanted to stay, like we got the adaptations of them, we wouldn't have gotten Adam West, which would have been a shame. But I'm sure we would have gotten someone. But we could have gotten Denzel Washington in Tim Burton's Batman movie in Batman '89.
That would have been an interesting take. Yes.
Mainly Denzel Washington's like would be one of my go-tos for like a superhero, preferably Batman. But I remember seeing images of like people wanting him to be Icon from like Milestone Comics.
That probably wouldn't have been a bad choice either.
Honestly, if I'm being honest, if they're really set on doing a Black Superman, he'd be my go-to for a Black Clark Kent, like an older Clark Kent, honestly.
Yeah. Although to be fair, again, in case anyone missed our coverage of this whole Black Superman fiasco, just do Calvin Ellis, please.
Yeah.
Or Val Zod or Icon or any of the other Black Superman surrogates.
Yeah, fucking Icon, man. Such a cool ass character, and no one wants to do anything with him. Most of the time they focus on Static. And don't get me wrong, Static's fucking cool. It's fucking cool, but
Yeah. And by the way, if ever there's a modern adaptation of Static, do not fuck him up, or I swear to God there will be hell to pay.
are you talking modern adaptation as in comics or as a movie?
Yeah, either way, because at this point the reboot of Milestone looks like it's going to go the modern day Vertigo route and push a bunch of social justice woo and kill itself.
I just don't like the costumes, specifically for Icon. It does not have that style.
Yeah, but in the movie it's the same thing. If you make a Static movie, keep it about gang violence and don't push the BLM bullshit, please.
I mean, honestly, they could, but at least be unbiased about it.
Be non-moralistic about it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, they can't. If they start dipping their toe into the BLM thing, then they kind of are doomed to be moralistic about it.
Shall we?
Yeah, banana. Or continue. I forgot we were doing an article and a video for a second. Sorry. My brain
we are. Yeah, both of us are kind of.
it's been a very long week, folks.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. In recent months, DC has revitalized the little-known character Tim Fox, the son of Batman ally Lucius Fox, as Jace Fox, Batman of John Ridley, Nick Darrington, and Tamara Bonvillain's future state the next Batman #1. And now Fox is taking steps to assert himself as the Batman of the present DC universe. I mean, granted, it's more in the future than anything.
Well, but they're talking about the present of future state, I would imagine, what they're getting at.
I mean, they already got past future state and now doing Infinite Frontier, I think.
Oh, well, all right then.
I don't know. I honestly haven't kept track of DC.
Ever since Doomsday Clock, I've just been kind of the thing that broke me was Witching Hour, making all magic in the DC universe derivative of Hecate and turning the Lords of Order into ghosts. Fucking hell.
Um. Okay. The concept of someone other than Bruce Wayne taking up the mantle of Batman is nothing new, but replacement Batmen like Dick Grayson and Jim Gordon have never integrated Bruce Wayne, interrogated Bruce Wayne by their mere presence.
And Jace Fox doesn't do that either.
No, okay, so
Unless you see things in racial terms, and there's no reason to see things in racial terms.
yeah, well, okay, I would say he's the lower tech Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Comparatively, because he doesn't have the funds like Bruce does.
Yeah, which is ironic considering that Lucius is the tech consultant for
Actually, Lucius is dead, I believe, in Future State.
right, but he was always Batman's Q, especially in the movies. So that's ironic that
Yeah,
his son is the low
that's
tech version.
yeah, that's fair. He's also very interesting because, like, yeah, he is kind of low tech. He works with what he's got. Um, he's very much like an underdog kind of Batman. Um, and I'm trying to remember the video I watched of the review for the comic from Nerdet's Newsstand. Great
Mm-hmm.
YouTuber. I recommend checking her out.
I
Uh,
haven't watched a bunch of her stuff, so I can't really weigh in one way or the other. But she seems nice.
yeah. Um, she there's this there's a story in the comic where like these two parents end up killing this man who did the online was an online predator to their daughter who did God knows what to her and made her body disappear and they don't know they killed and the new Batman Jace Fox caught them and is trying to get them to the police, have them arrested
Hmm.
for the crime, and like they scream and yell at him, telling him like what they did was justice and stuff, and like there's this monologue where like he gets what they're doing, but also like he's about like he can't let them go because they still killed a man,
Mm-hmm.
even if he did deserve to die,
Right.
and I found that very interesting about the character, and like it's very much like a Bruce thing, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's still different enough to be his own character. Like he doesn't he's not like Jason. Like he doesn't kill.
He doesn't cross the line, but he's also more accepting of those that do. It's
Yeah,
it's not it's less like indignation and rage when he catches them doing it
yeah.
than Bruce would have. Because you kill somebody around Bruce and he starts ranting and raving and all this other crap.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's very interesting. But my point being is, why the fuck do you need to make Bruce Wayne black if he's just going to be the same character? That's
But
not really.
but that's the thing I think they're getting at. I think they're saying they're effectively saying that if Bruce Wayne were black, he'd be poor and he wouldn't have the privilege, quote unquote. But at that point, it's honestly more insulting to black people
Yeah,
because
like
it's basically saying there are no rich black people or black people can be rich or some shit.
yeah. And again, like my it's just like it's the same character though. Like like I'm sure you and I would still have the opinions we do on Batman if he was black, like how Bruce Wayne is very mentally unstable and honestly should not be doing what he does.
Yeah, paranoia is not your friend, sir.
Extreme paranoia at the very least.
Like, I mean, I admire his ability to conjure contingency plans from thin air, but also the mind that can come up with that many contingencies for that many plans, and I'm coming from this as somebody who is rather high functioning and who does have extreme anxiety. If I let my extreme anxiety run my mind and made all those contingency plans like something that Batman would do, I would just have no life, none at all, and it would be extremely obvious from anyone who looked at it that it was unhealthy.
Right. Also, not to mention the fact that he is so strict. Like the only reason why he is not crazy is
Hmm.
because of his strict adherence to his own personal code.
Yeah, which is commendable, but also, you know, if he ever does experience a Joker-esque one bad day, a lot of people are going to be dead.
Yeah, dude is fucking emotionally traumatized, and I don't think he has I don't think he's ever had any actual legit therapy.
And
Any,
let's be fair, the man who beats the shit out of criminals every night dressed up as a bat person probably needs all the therapy.
yeah. Anyway, again, these opinions wouldn't change if it was the same. If it's Bruce Wayne as Black Man,
Yeah.
would not change.
No, it's literally just a palette swap
Yeah.
because his race was never important to his abilities, and his class is only important insofar as it allows him to have the money to do the things he does.
Yeah.
But like we just finished talking about, he mostly has contempt for his own class
Mm-hmm.
and finds them all to be vapid, annoying. It's like the rant Edna Mode gives about supermodels in The Incredibles. Spoiled, privileged little stick figures with nothing super about them, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's being very needy right now.
Yeah, she wants me to let her out, but I haven't found a point to go and get her yet. I'm gonna actually go do that so that she doesn't continue meowing all night.
Mm-hmm.
1 second. Yes, yes.
We're just gonna wait for him for a sec.
Okay, I have returned.
Mm-hmm. Shall we continue?
We shall.
Mm-hmm. Even a character like Batwing, Lucius's other son, Luke. There's also another one that was, I believe, an African police officer uh, that fought like militias and cartels within Africa and met Batman and stuff. David Zambimbe, I believe.
Mm,
I don't know about that one. Like that, I think he's a little. Yeah, he's not as widely. He's not as known as Lucius Fox as Batwing.
hmm
So I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, a former child soldier turned police officer, trying to better like his continent or his people, and was
hmm
inducted into the Bat family after Batman met him and like doing everything he could as a regular police officer stopping various militias and criminal organizations.
Mhm. Which all this just goes to prove that the Bat family had no problem inducting people in it with, who are of different races. Because it's almost like race doesn't matter. It's the principles and the ideology that matter.
Mhm. Um, uh, was never an analog for Bruce himself, even if he shared several qualities with his fellow heir. Again, that is that a problem that he's not exactly like Bruce?
Yeah. Which route are we going here? Are we going the make Bruce Wayne exactly like he is and just change the color palette? Or are we going the he's black, therefore he couldn't be rich route, in which case you're a moron?
I mean, it would be interesting to see a character that is like Batman adjacent, who is not rich, be able to do the
Yeah,
things.
it would be interesting to see somebody more like MacGyver create the bat technology or the bat tools out of like personal ingenuity and do it on the cheap or something. I mean, as an example, Spider-Man made his own web shooters, and
But
he's
at
not
that, but at that point, it's that's not really Batman. That's kind of like its own original character.
right. Which is another option here. Why don't you just make your own original character who is like Batman, but a black inner city kid, and he ends up MacGyvering his own gadgets instead of throwing money at the problem every time.
What's weird is I think Darren Aronofsky's Batman Year One movie that was supposed to happen was similar to that, with like Bruce Wayne building his own stuff.
Which I would actually like to see because it would show how intelligent Batman is, which is another aspect of Batman that doesn't really get focused on very much, apart from the I've had contingencies all along, haha approach.
Mm-hmm. Like I remember seeing, yeah. Also, if you guys don't know, there was actually before Batman Begins was made, Darren Aronofsky, who was like a big, I think he still is like a big Hollywood director, not as well
Yeah.
known as he could have been. Was
Uh, yeah, Darren Aronofsky was his most recent big movie was his adaptation of the Noah story.
Oh yeah, yeah. But he was approached in early 2000s to make a Batman film, and he was looking to adapt Batman Year One. You know, Frank Miller's Batman Year One.
Which I want to see that. I want to see that alternate universe, a alternate universe where Darren Aronofsky adapted Year One in place of Batman Begins.
Yeah, and it's gonna be very basic. Like he was gonna use like chemical weapons, not like chemical warfare, but more like smoke bombs and stuff.
So
Like
it was more like Golden Age Batman because initially Golden Age Batman was very much like that.
yeah, not as advanced tech, you know, because like again, it's Year One. He's just starting out. And remember seeing like there were concepts sketches of like the Batmobile, like the prototype one. It
Hmm.
looked really cool. But yeah, like he was actually supposed to like, if I remember correctly, like there were videos about it, but he was supposed to like, and there were supposed to be like some major differences between the comic and the movie, obviously.
Hmm.
But he like Bruce was like living in Gotham City instead of like living in the manor, like away from the city.
Hmm.
Or like, and apparently Alfred was supposed to be like this homeless or like a old mechanic instead of like his butler.
That's both interesting and yet not something I'm sure I would want to see.
I would be interested to see it just to see if it could work, like at least in this context of this movie.
Yeah, it might work.
Is that the cuckoo clock?
No, that's the dog.
Huh. So you have Don
He's
Problem this time.
he's bitching at the cat for being a cat.
of course. But yeah, no, it's just like again, like if you're, it's interesting, like take to do different takes on Batman, like even put a new character in the bat suit, sure, but I mean,
None of this requires turning Bruce Wayne black
yeah, uh,
or even caring about his race at all. And I would be saying the same thing if Richard Spencer walked in here and was like, "Let's make his race central to his character." Yeah, I would say the same thing. Fuck off
mhm.
with that shit. Race is not that important.
Still, moving on, I suppose. Still, none
Mhm.
of these characters really address what Black Bruce Wayne could mean to Gotham. Nothing really. I mean, it'd just be Bruce Wayne, the son of Gotham, or yeah, the son of
Yeah,
Gotham.
unless you make it somehow important. But the wonderful thing about Gotham is however fucked up it might be, and it is, it's basically hell on earth, but it would appear that most people don't give a fuck about race in Gotham.
Nope. Mainly whether or not you are you.
Colonel Scum
Yeah,
or not.
yeah, pretty much. Kind of makes you wonder why any rational human being, like normal person, would live in there.
Which does go a ways to explain why their version of a prison is basically a mental institution.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe the entire city of Gotham had just went insane a long time ago and has not changed for decades.
I mean, look at how many villains pop up in that city.
I mean, not to get too real world political or anything about it, but I mean, give modern day Chicago about 20 years or modern day Portland about 20 years. We'll see what happens.
Anyway, regardless of race, Bruce would still be the son of Thomas and Martha Wayne. He, he would still come from a family of immense wealth, and his parents would still be gunned down before him in Crime Alley, thus transforming Bruce Wayne into Batman.
Okay,
Okay,
so you are keeping literally everything about the character the same, just making him black.
I, I just,
Then this entire exercise is pointless. If you're not actually going to change the context of the character via this racial switch, then the racial switch is irrelevant. And if you are going to change the racial background of a character, or if you are going to change the background of a character just because of his race, then that would be even more stupid. So that the only way to do this essentially is to leave it alone and to not care about race.
okay, Batman as a hero would still operate from the shadows, uh, met, meting out justice on the criminal scum of Gotham City using a vast arsenal of tools and weapons as both hero and vigilante. Batman would still be applauded and hated in equal measure for his methodologies. Okay?
So why? If everything winds up the same, then why bother?
We'll get there, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Um, while Batman's more Justice League centric superhero activities likely wouldn't be affected much by his race, the same likely couldn't be said for his activities as Bruce Wayne, Gotham's billionaire playboy socialite.
Did no? You know there are rich black people, right?
Let's hear the reasoning though. I'm curious. While Bruce normally maintains the persona of an aloof rich boy to distract from his nocturnal activities, that persona wouldn't be seen the same if he was black. Where the white
Why not?
where the white Bruce Wayne has the luxury of free pass from the press for his various peculiarities. Every single facet of a black Bruce Wayne's personal life, including his lavish spending, would likely be judged and weighed against him in a public sphere that is only beginning to grapple with long-standing systemic racism. Oh
I,
my
for
fucking
the
god!
love of God, no.
I'm getting a drink.
Yeah. What in the name of God are you on, writer of this article? I mean, seriously. Just no. There are rich black people in modern day America, and there have been for decades. Like this, like no one cares or has cared for at least 20 to 30 years. No one. None. Like, what? Just why? No. No. In fact, in the modern era, with modern media the way it is, you'd probably get a bunch of fluff piece articles um calling anyone who criticized Bruce Wayne's spending in this alternate universe um systemically racist, because you can't criticize a single black person without it reflecting somehow on the like the structure of blackness itself, and therefore racist. So what are you on? Either the media wouldn't care because people are mostly indifferent to race, or the media would care, but in the inverse, if we're talking about a realistic depiction of the modern media that is very much obsessed with diversity, progress, and um, social justice. Like even Fox News has their their Ben Carsons and their Jesse Petersons and such. What are you on? Has
Mhm. I will say this though, in Gotham, right? At least, not a lot of uh, rich black people. Okay, if
well, but who knows in this alternate universe where the Wayne family is black?
fair enough, but again, and this is like a conversation you and I discussed with you like literally before stream, and kind
Hmm.
of my stance on like superhero masks and costumes is a full face mask always
Hmm.
to cover their identity, and also just it's a weak point just to have your mouth shown.
Yeah, because where where is the knife going to be going if you? And that's one of the weaknesses in the Batman is the bulletproof armor thing. Why doesn't anyone just aim for the mouth? Because even if you don't kill him, you could still maim the guy, and
Uh,
then you just
I think that's
look.
why he has the big old bat symbol is to draw attention to that.
Yeah, and then I mean, in this hypothetical, let's say a mugger or someone gets the right idea to just shoot Batman in the mouth, even if it doesn't kill him, you just look for the guy with comparable scarring the next day, and boom.
Yeah. So again, that's why I say full face mask. Also because like it covers the identity more, um, better protection, and also because it's Batman, more intimidation factor and fear by having no visible human traits
Hmm.
besides like the stature of a human, but like
Hmm.
in a silhouette.
Especially if we're in a universe where Bruce initially intended the Batman to kind of be a folk legend similar to like Mothman or um the Jersey Devil or something like that.
Bigfoot.
Well, less Bigfoot because that's in the middle of freaking nowhere.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's why I first went with Mothman, because that actually did occur. Like the original Mothman incidents mostly occurred in cities and towns. Oh, fuck off, Doc.
Yeah.
Moving on.
while Batman's more Justice League centric superhero activities likely wouldn't be affected much by his race, the same likely couldn't be said for his activities as Bruce Wayne.
You read that already. That was the thing that made us go completely nuts.
Oh, right. Sorry. Where did I? Oh, okay. Sorry. I forgot to push up the article.
Hmm.
Within high society, Bruce Wayne has always shrugged and laughed off his combat injuries as skiing accidents and the like. But a black Bruce Wayne would likely have to endure far more scrutiny over that, due to a press hungry for him to slip up.
Why? And
I mean,
no,
paparazzi, sure, but that's just paparazzi.
have you, for one thing, have you never seen paparazzi react to all celebrities? And for a second thing, are you acquainted with the modern media, sir? Because usually in the modern day and age, when a black person does something, at least half of the press, if not more, is going to create 1,000 puff piece and think pieces that are like criticizing this black person for doing what they did is an assault on blackness and makes you racist or something like that. So if anything, a black Bruce Wayne gets the Obama treatment. The he can do no wrong because he's so diverse and so special treatment. To the point that people still idealize the Obama era, even though he largely just continued the Bush era policies. Not getting too far into real world politics here, but still, god damn it. Are you are a professional writer, person who writes for CBR. You know how the modern media thinks because you are a part of the modern media. And here you are saying that the media would take advantage of the fact that Bruce Wayne is black, and at the same time saying that he should be made black because it would make him a better character. Like, these two things do not go together, sir. You can't, out of one side of your face, go, we should make this character black because it would make the character better, and then out of the other side of your face, say, the media, people like me, would have a problem with this somehow.
Right, okay. Moving on.
Yep.
This kind of scrutiny could even drive him to hide his face completely. Again, the whole hiding your face completely, as I listed earlier, has multiple reasons to work. None of it has about race.
Yeah, it makes more sense, honestly, than leaving the half cowl.
As Jace Fox's Batman does. Okay, again, for Jace Fox, that was because they were teasing who the hell is the next Batman. Okay?
Yeah, and it's largely to give the illusion that all the Batman are the same person.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because if the criminal underworld starts catching wind of the fact the mantle changes hands, then they can just see. Then I'm sure some crafty bugger in the criminal underworld is going to be able to figure out who Batman is from that.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's all supposed to be the same person, then it makes it much easier on Batman for hiding his identity. Moving on.
Yep. Even with a white Batman, Batman's relationship with the Gotham City Police Department has historically been a volatile one that largely depends on Batman's relationship with its current leadership. And that would likely be the case with a Batman who is a person of color, although in a far more pronounced fashion. Again, I mean, okay.
Why would it be more pronounced?
In a way, I can kind of agree with the first part.
Mm-hmm.
You know, historically a volatile one, depending on the relationship of the
sometimes the Batman is a rogue vigilante. Sometimes he works so closely with the police he's basically deputized.
Yeah.
But why would him being black be more volatile?
current times bullshit.
But again, in the modern era, a group of protesters basically burned down major cities for 6 months on and off because George Floyd died. And George Floyd did have a criminal history, and he was high on fentanyl when he died. And yet people still treat him like a martyr. So either you, person in the modern day Western media, are pig ignorant of how your colleagues think, or you keep trying to insist that the world is one way while being counter evidence to it being that way. Again, you can't, out of one side of your face, go, the media is so systemically racist, derp, while simultaneously being the media and advocating for black identitarianism because black people are so special and so victimized, derp.
Mm-hmm.
Like these things do not compute when you place them side by side, sir.
But yeah, the pronounced fashion thing. If you put any type of cop in the position of like a commissioner or someone in charge of the police force, and you have a vigilante who basically is doing the job of police officer, but gets more recognition because they get results because they're not tied down by bureaucracy and all the red tape.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine how
Mm-hmm.
police officers would feel about that, because I mean they already get enough shit as it is, just because of just a few number of assholes that are fucking up.
Yeah. Also, minor little parenthetical here. Some cops are black. In fact, quite a lot of cops are black.
Oh yeah.
And also tying this back to the broader Batman mythos, in the original plan for Batman Forever, Harvey Dent was going to be, i.e. Two-Face, but originally District Attorney Harvey Dent was going to be played by Billy Dee Williams, who is black. And if a district attorney can be black, and there can be black police officers, then perhaps we should countenance the notion that nobody gives a fuck.
Oh right. For people who don't know who Billy Dee Williams is, shame on you. Two.
Lando.
Yeah, Lando Calrissian from the original Star Wars Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He actually did get the voice Two-Face in
Mm-hmm.
in
The Lego Batman.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Sorry. I mean spaghetti. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's my dinner. Anyway, yeah, but regardless of race, it wouldn't really be a pronounced fashion. It's just more of, again, police don't really like vigilantism because it really does make their jobs a lot harder. Like if you're thinking about this in realistic terms.
And if a vigilante fucks something up and breaks the law, then that makes their job more difficult because now they basically have a criminal who thinks they're the law. It's the exact same reason why cops don't really like mob justice. Because you can't just leave public order up to an angry fucking mob. And even if you could, you shouldn't. Because lynchings and pitchforks and torches and shit. Not to mention property damage, but never mind.
Mm-hmm. Under Commissioner Gordon, Batman's relationship would likely be the same, since Gordon has always been the ideal of what a police officer should be. Yeah, okay, I agree with that.
Yeah, fair play.
Minus, again, the implied that
other cops wouldn't not give a damn.
Well, again, like Harvey Bullock, but that's understandable on the fact that
Yeah, but Harvey Bullock's objection has always been to Germ a vigilante. It's never been to do with race, and there's nothing in Harvey Bullock's character that suggests that it would become about race if Batman were black.
yeah,
Nor would anyone in Gotham give a damn if Bruce Wayne was black.
right. Again, it's just like it's kind of like a J. Jonah Jameson thing with Harvey. Is like more or less. I think he just wants people like the vigilante, like the Bat family, to be held accountable for their actions, like police officers.
Yeah, and I think there's probably also a little bit of selfishness with him. Like he wants things to be by the book, and he wants police officers to get credit for doing their jobs. And as long as these caped and costumed mooks are running around, people deride and make fun of real police officers, I think is kind of the rationale.
Yeah, and logically, that kind of would happen.
Yeah, because if superpowered vigilantes are better at doing the job of maintaining like the law and public order than police officers are doing, and especially in a time like now where police officers are under an immense scrutiny already with things like the George Floyd, defund police, all that nonsense.
It's kind of like it's something I never really noticed though.
Hmm.
Well, it's something I've always asked when I've like noticed in the stories when like they have police officers with superhero in the superhero world.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I mean like it just would make sense that the government would try to, especially with like supervillains,
Mm-hmm.
try to look more into R&D of like
Yeah, would start outfitting their police officers with super technology.
yeah, and better gear. Like you can't expect like a regular patrol officer like to
Yeah, and I mean it's been a meme forever and a day that Bruce Wayne could probably do more good for the Gotham PD if he just gave some Batman technology to the police.
but it's also a complicated.
There's also the element of corruption, yeah, and
Yeah,
bureaucracy. But
yeah. We'll also just imagine
plus,
how much training it would take for them to properly use that gear.
yeah, and we already have more heavily outfitted police officers in this day and age with like SWAT teams and stuff and special units, and it still doesn't make that much of a difference. But honestly, I think it would make sense if in a universe with superpowered beings, the kind of gear that and tactics that you see SWAT teams employing would probably just become the baseline, and SWAT teams would be even more heavily outfitted. Like regular police officers would basically be in SWAT team gear, and then um you'd have SWAT teams basically being in like Iron Man armor or something.
I was going with mech suits, but so yeah, Iron Man.
Some, yeah, but something along those lines anyway.
Anyway, unless you had something else.
No, go ahead.
Okay, move forward. Uh, uh, in almost any circumstance, it's difficult to imagine a version of Gordon who does not support Batman and his mission. I mean, there are versions, but that really just depends on how far Batman's going.
And who's writing it and why?
Yeah. For the rest of GCPD, however, things could play out differently. While a Batman who is a person of color could make him more trustworthy to some Gotham police, many of the same Gotham police who view Batman with distrust and validity could be prejudiced enough to have those feelings amplified because of a black Batman's race. Again,
No one cares.
yeah, it's not the race thing, it's more the tactics and methods Batman goes about.
Yeah, and if the tactics and methods were the same, there's no reason to believe. And isn't Gotham in the middle of fucking like New Jersey usually is where they put it?
Yeah.
In a northern city, which is basically a mix of Chicago and New York for the purposes of like comparison. No one cares. No one would give a fuck. If this was like deep South Alabama or something, if Gotham was set there, maybe at on the fringes there might be a couple people who might have an issue with it, but in a northern metropolitan city equivalent to something like New York, why would anyone give a fuck? No one. No. It's not the 1970s or 1960s anymore, and it hasn't been for almost 50 years. Can we get over this narrative, please? Moving on.
Yeah. Okay. A second. Okay. For the rest of the. Oh no, I read that. Sorry. Although there were other factors at play in the story, Jace Fox's Batman found himself consistently targeted by the fascistic police of Gotham's future state, and the metaphor of a highly militarized police targeting a black Batman was not so. Okay, one, it was a private military company in control of Gotham. It was not actual police.
And two, you're already operating under the premise that the police have become more authoritarian in
Dude,
this
okay.
dystopian future.
Right. The
So,
thing
so
that
it's not comparing Gotham's current police to the real world's current police. It's already asserting some kind of dystopian future. And yes, in a dystopian future, vigilantes would be more heavily targeted. But again, it would likely be because they're vigilantes. It has nothing to do with race.
yeah, and no,
Other than the fact that this particular character just happens to be black. And also, when does Future State take place?
I don't know. I don't think they really make it in the future. That's basically
Okay, well, let's say it takes place 50 years in the future, just for round numbers' sake. Assuming that society progresses along some kind of linear line here, what makes you think that in 50 years anyone will give a fuck about race? Because we barely care about it now, and it's only usually because people who are of a particular bend, usually a social justice one or a white nationalist one, insist that we give a damn. And most of the time, those people are either considered annoying or just laughed at. So in 50 years' time, again, assuming that our civilization is still around and has not destroyed itself, I expect it will be even less important than it is now. I mean, look at where we are now versus where we were 50 years ago. If we can assume a similar deflation of tensions 50 years from now as we could 50 years 50 comparing 50 years ago to now, then no one will give a damn at all.
the Peacekeepers. I think that's what they were called. They weren't after Jace or well, I guess the new Batman or next Batman, I guess, or I'm just gonna call him Batman. Honestly, less of a mouthful. They were after people in mass.
Yeah. Again, it's the vigilantism, not the race. And
Oh no, they were also after like gangs. Like there was a gang that was inspired by Bane, and they wore masks like Bane, like luchadors.
oh
Uh,
well, yeah, definitely. If it's the people wearing masks or obscuring their identity, and some of those people are committing crimes, and the other percentage of them are being vigilantes, then I'm not surprised that a more authoritarian, strict government would go after them.
yeah. Plus, Jace is Batman, and I'm sure the peacekeepers who are very much authoritarian. I don't want to say, well, they're a PMC, private military corporation or company,
Hmm. Yeah,
and occupying Gotham, which
and
I
also, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, but his entire face is covered. So who's to say they even know he's black?
that's the point of a secret identity too.
Yeah. Like
And
you're inserting politics that don't even make sense within the context of the narrative. Like if his face is covered, and I'm assuming he probably also has one of those voice changer type things, then it's possible they don't even know he's black, and they can't target him if they don't know his race.
mhm,
They can't target him for his race if they don't know his race.
yeah, they're after him because he's Batman. Okay,
Hmm.
imagine and a Batman in a dystopian Gotham fighting the guys in control of a dystopian Gotham as well as regular crime is a problem to the guys in an authoritarian government.
Yeah, and we already see shades of this in Dark Knight Returns.
Sons of Batman.
when Gotham has gone to shit and is being controlled by an authoritarian government.
Yeah. Anyway,
They send Superman after him, for fuck's sake.
oh, I've made my opinions on that. No, I'm not.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, okay. In a nation where black men are disproportionately targeted by police, the image of the GCPD, not the GCPD, hunting Batman with military-grade weapons would be inherently laden with meaning and subtext for a black person. Again, peacekeepers, completely different thing.
And also, black people are disproportionately targeted because they disproportionately occupy poor communities and are disproportionately more likely to engage in criminal behavior.
Uh-huh. As sad as that is, it is actually like it's
Yeah.
statistical. It's
Yeah. If you want to do something about the disproportionate targeting of black people, why don't you do something to address the number of broken homes in black communities and fatherlessness and shit? Because a lot of young black kids join gangs because they need some kind of male guard or guidance, and they can't get it from a father because the father isn't in the fucking home.
yeah. But yeah, there's a image from the comic which is Jace monologuing to himself, internally. No due process, no trial, just shoot them all. I figured, and then he like throws some, I think, flash grenades.
Hmm.
Again, taken out of context, yes, it seems very much like, but within the context of this authoritarian guys who are just they're assholes,
Yeah, it's a dystopian future
Yeah,
run by a corporatized private um,
military.
military.
I also realize that there are a lot of private military companies out there.
Hmm.
That should, I honestly feel like that should be on a watch list.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Moving forward. Yeah.
yeah, the dude's cornered. And again, it's Batman against an authoritarian organization. If they have them cornered, don't you
Yeah,
think?
authoritarian governments don't like troublemakers, especially troublemakers that offer an alternative system of justice, because it makes them look bad and it makes them look authoritarian because they are authoritarian. It exposes them for who they are, and we can't have the mask drop on our authoritarian regime, because if that happens, then people might start questioning the authoritarian regime.
And it's what I'm gonna say is kind of funny. It's gonna make you laugh on, but in context to like Gotham City, Batman is a symbol of hope to the downtrodden and innocent people.
Yeah. And if I was an authoritarian government, the first thing I would try to remove is as many symbols of hope as possible, because if you remove all the other symbols of hope, then the only symbol of hope left is you and your system. And again, authoritarian governments don't like offering alternatives, because if if you have the option of alternatives, then you might find out that you prefer other alternatives to the alternative we're providing you. And then there's no need for the authoritarian government. If there's no need for the authoritarian government, then people might start questioning, why do you need to do these terrible authoritarian things in order to do this?
Mm-hmm. Moving on.
And questions are forbidden.
Moving on.
Yep.
To be sure, the DC Universe already has black heroes in the forms of characters like John Stewart, Steel, and Michael Bolt's Mr. Terrific.
It's almost
Holt,
like race isn't important or anything or something.
Holt especially offers an idea of what a black Bruce Wayne might face in the DC Universe.
Mm-hmm.
Really? I doubt that.
Yet no. Like, again, among the rich aristocracy, the current ideology is one of social justice, diversity, and inclusion. So if anything, he becomes an Obama-like figure who can't be criticized, because if you criticize his policies or his actions, then you're de facto being, or your default being, racist, because there's no conceivable other reason you would criticize them according to the current ideology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mr. Terrific, he's a self-made billionaire who is an Olympic-level athlete and is ranked as the third smartest man in the world. While he's certainly a respected hero, Hulk doesn't have the same kind of prominent place that a Bruce Wayne Bruce Wayne of any race would have, simply due to his relative real-world obscurity.
Well, unfortunately, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes.
Well, also,
I am the first to advocate for obscure characters getting more of the limelight, because I always maintain that if you gave all characters equal amounts of limelight, you might be surprised which characters people ended up gravitating to. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes.
mm-hmm. um, John Ridley and Giuseppe Camuncoli, the
Mm-hmm.
other history of the DC universe,
Oh God.
has shown the struggles of black heroes within the DC universe, and those issues would likely be even more intertwined with the urban decay of inner city Gotham for a black Batman.
You mean he invented them, because those characters completely acted out of character for most of that storyline.
I haven't read it nor do I care to. I've seen reviews of it, but I haven't really sat through them because
Mm-hmm.
you know.
But long story short, the characters in the other history of the DC universe behaved in an out of character manner because the writer wanted to use them as ideological mouthpieces. And none of this was ever brought up or even implied in any other DC story. So if if the other history of the DC universe is your gold standard for how you deal with race issues properly, then you can get fucked. Because no, you shouldn't warp the structure of a universe out of shape just for ideological reasons. Sorry. Fuck off. Moving on.
At the end of the day, Batman and the other heroes in the DC Universe stand for fighting evil wherever it may be and protecting those that cannot protect themselves. Yeah, it almost seems like race isn't a fucking... Okay,
yes,
you know, speaking of Black, okay, because he mentioned the character earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
Steel. You know, John Henry Irons.
Mm-hmm.
That guy became Steel because he was working on, I believe it was welding a steel beam on a building.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, okay, hold on. I want to look up this character, but I don't have my phone with me right now because it's charging.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remember correctly, he fell off a building in Metropolis, and Superman saved him. And when he asked Superman how he could repay him for saving his life, Superman said, "Make it count." And I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm trying to just get through this quickly.
Right, but essentially make sure that the life I saved amounts to something.
He worked. Yeah, and when the death of Superman happened,
Mm-hmm.
he made his own like super suit that bore the crest of the House of El, Superman's symbol, to honor him and to become the hero Steel in order to carry on his legacy when everyone thought Superman was dead, to repay the man that saved him. But he has said he is not Superman. He is the hero that he became in honor of the Man of Steel.
Mm-hmm. Notice race never mentioned anywhere.
I mean, name maybe, but
well, but I mean, is every person named John Henry named after the American folk hero John Henry? Because I imagine there's someone somewhere whose name just happens to be John Henry that was named that way.
Talking more for the creator and the writer,
right?
And it also does fit because like his main weapon is a hammer and stuff. So
right, okay, but in terms of the backstory and the character motivation, race never mentioned anywhere.
Mm-mm. I mean, for like a character like Icon or Rocket,
yeah, that matters. Then it matters.
It kind of matters, but in a very set in a very specific set of circumstances.
Yeah, and not the "woe is me, I'm black, therefore I can do nothing right" kind.
Yeah. Anyway, as aspirational champions of justice and truth, they help guide people to be better every day. While not everyone will experience the same tragedy that gave birth to him, Batman exists as a symbol of unwavering courage and bravery in the face of despair. And again, that wouldn't fucking change if he was black.
Yeah, it's universal application of principle, motherfucker. Do you speak it?
I just bring that up. Next thing. If Bruce Wayne was born a black man, he would have had to face the same challenges that the hero traditionally faces, although he would so with far more public scrutiny and the more prejudiced aspects of the civilian population and the GCPD actively rooting against him.
No. again, Gotham is in New Jersey, and it's a metropolitan city on par with something like New York or LA or somewhere like that. And the current like zeitgeist among the upper classes is this diversity and inclusion and social justice stuff. So if anything, he gets more leniency for being black. And I can't imagine anywhere in the GCPD anyone would give a fuck. And most people in Gotham are just happy when good things happen to them because they're in a miserable situation, not unlike modern day Chicago, unless someone made them care about race for the sake of pushing an agenda. But as far as making this an analogy for the real world is concerned, the real world hasn't been how you're describing it for at least the last 30 years, if not longer.
Mm-hmm. Um,
Like I can almost guarantee you that if I walked up to a person in New York in 1991, which is because I did specify 30 years, and asked them a bunch of questions about race, their only question would probably be something along the lines of, "Why are you asking me all these questions about race? Race doesn't matter." Which is the correct answer, goddamn you.
mm-hmm. Moving on.
Yeah.
While his parents' wealth and social status would have given him some privilege, even they would not be enough to protect the Black Bruce Wayne from systemic racism. You have no idea how money works, do you?
I don't think so. And again, in modern day America, where every where every company has an HR and PR department that is explicitly inculcated into things like intersectionality, third wave feminism, critical race theory, and all that business, and all of the rich upper crust people virtue signal publicly at the you freaking N about shit like this. You honestly think that in the modern era, anyone is going to give a fuck? Bearing in mind that you made this article specifically to say we should make Bruce Wayne black because it adds more socio-political weight to his story, and you are a professional writer of this article. You write for CBR. So don't be sitting here telling me that the media would vilify a black Bruce Wayne when you are currently, as we're sitting here, as I'm speaking, lionizing the idea of a black Bruce Wayne. And if there was a black Bruce Wayne in real life, you'd probably be doing the same thing, but to an even greater degree. And you'd be yelling at people, whoever did criticize a black Bruce Wayne, for vilifying, quote unquote, a black man, even if the person criticizing him was using the same arguments he would use on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have a racial lens that you like to see everything through, or that you are convinced that you should see everything through. And so does a large swath of the rest of the media and corporations and the upper class.
You good?
Yeah. Moving on.
To have Bruce Wayne himself be born black is fundamentally different than having David Zavimbe or Tim Fox take up the mantle as Batwing. Characters who are, by their derivative nature, side characters in a white man story. Oh my fucking god! Really? Are you? Okay. This is me as a writer ranting right now. I'm gonna be completely fucking honest. Most of the fucking side characters, the other members of the Bat family, are a lot more fucking interesting than Batman. Than Bruce Wayne. Okay? And that's nothing against Bruce. Like, he's cool, but honestly, I'm just kind of sick of him at this point. Like, he's He's been kind
Yeah,
of
can we move the fuck on from Bruce Wayne already, for the love of God, and from Batman in general?
okay. So you have Dick Grayson, who is I want to say he's very much the son of Batman, not in biological terms, obviously,
No,
but
but in terms of like in terms of like ideologically where it matters, he's the son that Bruce never had before he figured out he actually did have a biological one.
to be honest, I don't really care about Damien. So
Yeah, Damien is a brat and quasi sociopath, so he can fuck off.
like
As far as I'm
it's
concerned.
understandable, but whatever.
Yeah, he was traumatized as a kid and raised by assassins, so he's gonna be an asshole. But that doesn't change the fact that fundamentally he is a brat. And unlike Bruce, he actually does care about his regal bearings because he was raised by Ra's al Ghul and fucking Talia al Ghul to view himself as superior to everybody at all times. And when Mommy Dearest told him that he had a rich daddy, that only served to elevate his
But
sense of superiority all the fucking time.
but you have Dick Grayson, and there's this YouTuber who's doing like video essays on the Bat family. It's really cool, and I like it a lot. And I wish they would do more. It's called the YouTuber's called Sage Rain or Sage's Rain. It's really cool. But yeah, you got Dick Grayson, who is the spiritual son of Batman, who, thanks to Bruce's interference, has been able to grow past his trauma, something Bruce can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And Bruce is aware of that. Like he's not he's not unself-aware.
Yeah, he understands that he's basically perma-fucked by his childhood trauma.
Yeah,
and if anything, he wants to work hard to create a world where no one else has to live like that.
Which is admirable, and also it's super sad because like the guy can never truly enjoy his actual life. Like he can't find a way to,
despite having more money than God.
That's the tragedy of Bruce Wayne. It's
he has everything a man could ever want, and then some, and yet he can't see the value in any of it because he's still that little 11-year-old boy who lost mommy and daddy in the alley.
I thought it was 8. I mean,
they change it all the fucking time.
I'm believing 8 because I feel like that kind of trauma at that kind of age would affect you even greater than like 11 or so.
Right, but in any case, he's still the little boy who lost mommy and daddy in the alley and now wants to take it out on every criminal he can get his fists on.
Not really take it out, but is consumed by the mission to make sure what happened to him never happens to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Dick Grayson has evolved. He is the son that was able to move past the pain and is able to not be consumed by the mission like Bruce is. And I think that's why Bruce is like the most proud of Dick out of his kids.
Yeah.
I mean, like he's proud of all of his kids, obviously.
Not to mention that I think Dick is the smartest and most capable out of all of them. If I had to put a label on it.
Yeah, and also like he isn't consumed by the mantle of the Bat. Like,
yeah,
Dick Grayson isn't the mask. It's
Dick is the good son, whereas Damien is the emo brat kid that you want to send to therapy.
Yeah. And again, this is like the video I'm talking about from Sage's Ring, where like Dick can truly take off the Bat cowl and not see it as like this is his real face. This Batman isn't the person, isn't the actual person.
For Dick Grayson, Batman is a mask. For Bruce Wayne effectively has become a mask.
Yeah. And I want to bring this character up because diversity points, and also they really fucked her up in her own show. Kate
You,
Kane, Bruce Wayne.
I knew you as soon as you said that you were going there again. Go on.
Right. For the record, if you guys do actual research on the character, she's really fucking cool compared to her show, which that's not Kate Kane at all.
Yeah, it's one thing to insist on diversification of characters. It's another to completely forego the actual backstory and merits of a character.
Um, like her cousin Bruce, she went through a lot of trauma as a kid by seeing her mother and sister, I think twin sister actually, killed in front of her by a terrorist group known as, held hostage. Seeing her mother and daughter, sister killed in front of her,
Mhm.
and and like just so emotionally broken by that. Like I think she was even younger than Bruce at the time. Like it was before even Bruce lost his parents.
Mhm.
She joined the military to honor her father, I believe, who was former military.
Mhm.
He and she was kicked out. Again, this is because at the time, the whole was it "Don't kiss, don't tell."
Don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell. Um, she refused to keep quiet and was let out of the military because she didn't want to lie about who she really is. And again, modern day, I don't think the story would work, obviously.
Yeah, because don't ask, don't tell has been repealed for quite a while.
Yeah. But,
And once again, I always do throw this in there when we talk about this because I think it's important that people watching this understand. We know there was a practical reason for don't ask, don't tell, but it honestly should have been applied universally because the problem with any relationship in a military situation is if you're more emotionally connected to one part of your unit than the others, and it comes down to a life or death situation, you're going to go to protect the person you have feelings for over the rest of your unit, and that is bad for both unit cohesion and also just in general.
yeah. But in case of this story, it's but overall, I can respect that for the time and for the character. You know, she didn't want to lie and she didn't want to like
Yeah,
hide.
if I were in the military, I would have probably made the same choice. To be entirely honest with you.
Yeah,
That being said, I would never ever ever be in the military, and you couldn't pay me enough to justify me going into the military.
you also couldn't get in. To be fair,
Well, I see that more as I'm spared because there have been times in American history and the history of just about every country where the draft has been forced on people, and only people who were physically quote unquote inferior could avoid it. So this is my get out of the draft free card. So if ever there's a situation where there is ever a draft again, I can go, Nina, 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 you can't send me. No, no, no.
right?
I would gloat about it. Fuck
Right.
the military. Well, fuck me going into the military. I'm perfectly fine with other people choosing of their own free will to go into the military. But
But was I
yeah.
right? And KK. And here's the thing. This is something that bugged the shit out of me. Like it could have worked in the show, but they didn't really get anything with it.
Hmm.
In the comics, Kate King is like ambushed by like this group of guys, like thugs, and is getting savagely beaten. And I think, again, she's like in a very depressive time at that time,
Hmm.
because she's also like picked up being like a socialite and like a drunkard and shit like that because of like how kind of shitty her life was.
Yeah, and also family money.
Yeah, and she she was saved by Batman, who at the time she didn't know was Bruce, obviously.
But that was an interesting conversation to have after she figured it out.
Yeah, and thus after seeing Batman and like saving her and stuff, she got inspired to become Batwoman. And she was already a highly trained soldier, even though like she was still going through the shit she was going through.
Mm-hmm. She still had the skills. The not being in the military was basically a technicality.
Yeah. Um, and so she became, she became Batwoman. Uh, she is a lot like Jason in the fact that she can she uses guns and she's not afraid to kill.
Mm-hmm.
But I think she's a little more stricter than Jason.
Mm-hmm.
But again, my point being is, all honesty, those that gravitate towards Bruce and his Batman symbol persona
Mm-hmm.
are often really interesting because like they aren't Bruce. They aren't bound by the same trauma. I mean, granted, most characters that join the Bat family have a tragedy that makes them want to join.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Fox is an outlier, and maybe Tim as well.
Mm-hmm.
Damien, but I mean, the tragedy with him is more so just his existence.
Mm-hmm.
But again, my point being is the side characters in a quote unquote white man story are often more interesting because of how they are inspired and develop and interact with the quote unquote white man.
Yeah, and how fucked in the head do you have to be to A, assume that all white characters are the same white male character, and B, who the fuck views storytelling through that lens?
Right. Also, you're completely like degrading characters like David Zabimbe and Tim Fox by saying like their derivative nature as side characters.
Yeah, yeah, fuck that entire frame of mind, to be honest with you.
It's like that's so limiting and again just insulting to the characters and all the cool shit they've done.
And arbitrary and stupid and wrong-headed, and I hate that anyone who is intellectually respected in any degree could conceivably think that way.
Right. Okay. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
A black Bruce Wayne negates the problems that arise with those characters by making one of the cornerstones of the DC universe a person of color in terms of representation. That would be a huge win, making Batman an even more aspirational figure. Oh, fuck off!
You are insinuating that black people cannot relate to Bruce Wayne as he is. And my darling writer of this article, whose name I forget.
Devon.
Hmm?
Devon Foster.
Okay, Mr. Foster. You, sir, are a moron par excellence. Most people do not give a fuck about race, and they never will. And quite frankly, they are right to do so. They are right not to give a fuck about race, because the things that define a person are not their demographic. It is their interests, their skills, their hobbies, their loves and aspirations, their desires, their motivations. These are the things that define characters. And quite frankly, also what define people. No person in their right mind is going to look at a character who is different from them in a demographic sense and go, well, they're different from me in this one demographic way. I guess I can't relate to them now. And if any kid is ever forced into that situation, it's because of ideologies like this bullshit,
Right.
sir.
Just as point of reference, right? One of my favorite superheroes, well, I guess anti-heroes, is Spawn.
Hmm.
A black man,
Yeah.
former military, well, former CIA assassin,
Hmm.
turned undead general of hell thing. It's a lot complicated because of his journey and story.
Hmm.
Also, it's not really so much I relate to him,
Hmm.
but more so I'm compelled by his character.
Hmm.
I guess is the way I could say it. And I'm Latino. I'm Hispanic,
Hmm.
and yet he's one of my favorite characters, and I've loved for a very long time. And again, like in recent, like I don't know, 5 or so years, I've gotten really into Superman, who is an alien. Granted, he looks like a white man, but well, Jewish, I suppose.
Hmm.
But I respect and like the character because he's just a good man who has like all the powers of what people perceive as a god.
Hmm.
Ordinary people, at least.
Yeah. People who haven't really thought about it much, but that's neither here nor there. Um,
But my point being is that he's just a good guy trying to do what he can, just on an extraordinary scale due to having these extraordinary abilities.
mhm. Now imagine, Brainstormer, in addition to your normal childhood trauma, if you had to deal with a situation where someone came up to you and said, you shouldn't like that character because he's a different race from you. You should only like Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle or El Tigre or God knows what else
I
because
mean, they are cool characters. I mean, El Tigre could have done a lot more with character development, but
right. I'm just saying, imagine a world where you start showing that you like Superman or someone else that you listed there as a kid, and someone with this kind of ideology in their head goes, you shouldn't like that character, they're a different race from you. Or imagine if, if you're a guy who really likes Wonder Woman, and someone comes along and goes, you shouldn't like that character, they're a different gender from you. Imagine how fucked over in the head you would get if you genuinely believed that shit, or if they got to you while you were young enough that you couldn't question it. And that is exactly, Mr. Foster, what you are doing right here, right now, in this goddamn point. Black characters or black people, white people, Hispanic people, all the kinds of people you can imagine, and some you probably couldn't imagine because you're a dense cunt. Um, can relate to all of these characters because again, the things that define a character have nothing whatsoever to do with race. One of my favorites, um, quote unquote non-powered characters is Amanda Waller, who is a black woman.
oh yeah, no, okay. So I recently, like last night, I watched the Suicide Squad, and I love Amanda Waller. Okay, well, it's not that I love her; I respect her.
Hmm. And that's just the movie version of Amanda Waller. I was talking about the version that I first saw on Justice League Unlimited when she was the leader of um, the secret government organization that funded and produced Cadmus. Um,
Oh yeah,
yeah, in your worldview, that shouldn't be allowed to happen. I shouldn't be able to relate to Amanda Waller because she's a black woman government agent, and I'm a bisexual, disabled, occultist white guy um, from the country.
you know in the New 52, they slimmed her down.
Yeah, I don't like that.
It's interesting because like I think they also put like on actual missions with Suicide Squad.
I know, but I like her as a surrogate for like a Nick Fury like character, like a more puppet mastery version of Nick Fury. Also, I like that her nickname, or at least it used to be, is the Wall. Like the fact that she's kind of owned the fact that she's a
Robot.
plus size black woman and used it to her advantage.
Mm,
It's kind of like Wilson Fisk, how he's a very fat guy, but he also um he's also capable of fucking you up.
yeah. Anyway, I don't know if they changed her back. I haven't checked into the comics with Amanda Waller, to be honest.
I would prefer if they changed her back, to be
I
honest,
think they
just for
modeled. I think they modeled the new design.
after Viola Davis.
No, I'm talking about the slim down version.
Hmm.
To me, it appeared like Halle Berry or something.
I'm not opposed to a younger version of Amanda Waller being thin, because she would have had to have been a soldier at some point to um
Be at the
get
position how she was
get
in.
in the position she's in, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but even then, I sort of like the idea of her being the badass black lady stereotype, and not because it's a stereotype, but because I'm I have more respect for people who can own shit like that than people who feel the need to change themselves for it. Like when people mock you, you shouldn't go, well, I should change what I'm like to stop them from mocking me. Then
Hey,
your response should be the thing you're mocking me for doesn't stop me, you morons. I'm gonna continue being myself.
hmm. Okay, we got one paragraph left. And for the sake of time, just because like we only have 20 hours a month,
Hmm.
we are gonna cut it off with like the next article.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so while the image of a
Yeah,
black,
this one took longer than we thought, I think.
yeah, I honestly thought we'd be done in an hour, not two.
There were a lot of side tangents though, because we got into like the meta discussion about who Batman is as a character and his history and stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. While the image of a black Batman saving Gotham from the Joker or jumping down from the shadows to save citizens would be strong in their own right, it's just Batman. Why the fuck?
They're strong by themselves without any race mixing or meddling or whatever.
Yeah, you just take out the black part, it's still fucking Batman. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
I mean, there's a reason this character has lasted for 90 freaking years almost.
I don't get whatever. I'm not. It's frustrating because
Yeah, like
you're literally
it.
like it's
Go ahead.
if you're gonna make a black Batman, then just make a new fucking character to inherit the role, okay? And see how different he is from Bruce, okay?
Yeah.
Or and like Dylan and I had a discussion about this because we talked about this article once or twice before.
Hmm.
If
Well, while we were just hanging out, we're not talking about on stream, so don't go looking for us
yeah,
covering the rest of this or something
we hang out a lot, so
over Discord and stuff.
yeah, so yeah, it's just like if you were to like, okay, if you're making a movie and you cast a black guy as Bruce Wayne as Batman, it should just be because like he's the best choice, you know?
Yeah, like if Idris Elba tomorrow goes to DC and goes, I want to play Batman, the correct answer is yes, sir, because he's Idris freaking Elba. Just
I
like,
honestly, I wouldn't cast him as Batman. To me, he doesn't really seem like a Batman type.
that's fair, but again, it's
He,
one of those.
it's just like he's in everything at this point, and
Yeah, but still, yeah, as a general rule, it's kind of like when, and
again,
this is my go-to.
if I had my way, if we were like talking back in 2016 with like BBS,
Hmm.
an older Batman, Denzel Washington, just because like he's my go-to pick for like any type of like really badass superhero character.
Hmm.
Like I even would love to see him as Spawn, to be honest.
Denzel's Spawn would be brilliant and brutal in exactly the way that Spawn needs to be. So,
Honestly,
yep.
he has the voice similar to Keith David's. I mean, like Keith David's voice is like still iconic for Spawn,
Hmm.
but I think Denzel Washington could be like maybe. And no offense to Keith David, but could one up Keith David in the performance.
Yeah, in terms of playing him on live action. But in any case, the example I was about to give was when Helen Mirren asked to play Prospero in the 2010 adaptation of Shakespeare's The Tempest. Nobody batted an eye because it's Helen freaking Mirren. And if the actor has that level of skill, nobody gives a fuck. Other than in the inverse. If a actor on that scale asks to play a character, your answer is yes, sir, or ma'am. And it's the only acceptable answer, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Batman's commitment to his cause and sense of justice would be the same, and that selfless commitment to protecting others in what defines Batman far more than his race, privilege, or anything else. Okay, then what the fuck is the point of this god
Yeah,
article?
his race never defined him, period. I don't know what you're on. Like, like the only time I think Batman has ever said anything about race is in the old Golden Age period when a bunch of DC superheroes were fighting the Klan. Like there might have been a Batman comic where Batman told the Klan to fuck off because they were all idiots, but apart from that, the race has never been a factor.
Right. I just
Nor should it be.
also like again, don't deny like not to get too much away because we kind of want this to be a surprise. But we talked about like the possibility of like a like it could work to do a black Batman. Like
Yeah, you could honestly do an entire like blaxploitation universe for the Batman ethos.
I mean, granted, for like Wonder Woman, I really would have just done Nubia instead of just a Black Diana,
Yeah.
just because that makes sense. And honestly, it doesn't like you're not completely whitewash or blackwashing, I guess, of characters.
Hmm. Plus, Diana is Greek, and sometimes that counts as a person of color. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is gonna be our last article for the night. This might take us a while, just because of what it is. A lot of people were covering it. I honestly I'm kind of on the fence about it. We'll get into it. It's from Polygon.com. One of the Robins just came out of the closet. It's by Susanna Polo. Tim Drake this is published August 10th, 2021.
Yeah. Ironically, this entire stream is basically a Batman stream because both stories are Batman related.
Yeah. Tim Drake is finding, as the subheader says, Tim Drake is finding himself and going on a date with a boy. Yeah, okay, here's the thing. I'm not like the biggest. I think I made it clear. Like one of my favorite Robins, one of my favorite characters in the Bat family is Jason Todd.
Hmm.
And like, don't get me wrong, I understand a lot about Tim Drake, and I get it. And I've done some research on the character, and I think it is stupid to just. I mean, at least they didn't change him to gay, like they did with Iceman. You know?
Yeah, and that's my 2 cents on this. A lot of people were flipping out about this on ostensibly our side, and I've often said when faced with you know gayifying characters, and again I can say that because I am actually bisexual, but mostly prefer dudes to the point that it's almost irrelevant, and I usually just refer to myself as gay. Um, but point being, even back when we were when those of us in original Comicsgate were covering Bobby Drake coming out as gay, my main complaint was why the fuck didn't they just make him bisexual? Because then it doesn't contradict the 50 plus years of pre-existing continuity. It just adds something.
Yeah.
And I usually phrase it like this: if you have one sexuality and you add a second sexuality, you now have two sexualities. Duh. You don't change. Sexualities don't change. They can get more complicated, maybe, but they don't change. What the fuck are you on? Moving on. Brainstormer? You do. Brainstormer. He must have left. Or I can't hear him for some reason. Hello?
Sorry, I was dealing with some things.
Okay.
Yeah, I was throwing away a can.
Okay.
Yeah, moving on.
Yep.
Okay. Tim Drake is the Robin who isn't really sure how to be Robin anymore.
Really?
Again, I don't know much about Tim Drake as a Robin, so I
Yeah,
can't.
I never got that impression from him. He always seemed like he was enjoying it to me. But
But in this week's Batman Urban Legends, he's figured at least one thing out. A nice boy asked him out on a date, and Tim said yes. Okay, see. My major issue is like the overblown nature of this.
yeah, and I hate using this phrase because it's tainted now, but on both sides this is really stupid. Because you've got the social justice side going, this is really revolutionary, this is really amazing. And then you've got our side, I think, thinking they pulled another Iceman and assuming they made him gay rather than just bisexual.
I mean, Polygon did say gay, so
Did they?
yeah, Robin comes out as gay.
Okay, well then Polygon is also a moron.
Yeah,
Because
I like again. It's just the overblown nature of this that bugs me. Is like it's not that important because like does it really change the character that much?
unless they actually do start changing his personality to match it,
Yeah.
like they did with Iceman, in which case, fuck you.
Oh
But
yeah, like if they start doing that, then yeah, oh no, that's fucked. But as far as I think, they haven't really changed the character. They just made him like, oh, I like dudes too, like dudes, I like chicks,
yeah,
whatever.
guy asked him out on a date. Dude said yes. You know, no reason to stop the presses with the freaking hobnail and shit. It's just, guy got asked out on a date and he said yes.
Right.
What do you want?
Okay, so moving on. That makes him the first new LGBTQ member of Batman's immediate family in 15 years since Batwoman herself. Wow, Batwoman's only been around for 15 years. I mean, Kate Kane, you know, Batwoman.
Mm-hmm.
I know Batwoman herself has been around for a while now,
Mm-hmm.
since like the 50s, I believe.
Mm. But yeah. Speaking as the LGBT person on this year's stream, I don't care.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, if we're to play the ball where it lies, there are Cassandra Cain as far as I know, has never really had any romantic interests.
Hmm.
Nor has she ever really shown any interest in anyone, to my knowledge. But granted, I can have limited knowledge. I have limited knowledge on that character.
Yeah, as far as either of us know, there's no major.
If we're wrong, please correct us in the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah.
Um, but as far as I know, I mean, you could make an argument. I'm not saying make the argument, obviously. I'm just saying
It could be made.
that she is possibly asexual
Yeah,
because, like, she's trained essentially from birth to be a killer, and to the point where like she can read body language.
yeah. I can't imagine that really left a lot of time for exploring puberty when puberty happened.
Honestly, I think
And
she's
that she,
so. And again, like, there's a video essay of her called like Cassandra Cain, Batman's daughter,
hmm
and like she's so obsessed with like the mission of Batman to try and like redeem herself
hmm
that she it's like Bruce on the fact that I don't think he'll ever find actual happiness and like a love. Like he sure Selena and like when we started on the Tom King marriage thing.
Yeah, let's not even get into the non-wedding. And honestly, those two should just get married already and have.
At least Brave and the Bold had the balls to do that, even though like it was technically a what if.
Yeah, and like, can you imagine the stories they could tell with the child of Bruce Wayne and Selena Kyle, the child of Batman and Catwoman?
This is always what's gotten me with like the big two, and it's why I've always preferred indie comics. And I'm sure I've mentioned it before.
Hmm.
Is the is like with indie comics they have, and I know there's a lot more complications to it, but they actually have the balls to do something and not retcon it down the line.
Hmm.
Like again, I know it's a complicated thing with the big two because it's
Yeah, because the continuity changes at the drop of a hat because everyone keeps trying to reboot the goddamn universe instead of just telling interesting stories within the universe that we have.
if and again like I'm not trying to. I'm just saying like it would be legitimately interesting if they had kept the kind of continuity, kind of streamlined it a bit from the 40s, like the late 30s, the 40s.
Yeah, keep the major events that people liked, minimize some of the ones that people didn't like, or
What
make
I'm
them Elseworlds and then be done with it.
right, what I'm getting at though is like it's a generational thing throughout all the years, like the legit years of the comic publishing, where like let's say Frederick Wortham didn't exist for this hypothetical, and every
Blessed universe.
right, and everyone thought about like having a single continuity instead of just doing like the one-off adventures and stuff
Hmm.
for these worlds.
Yeah, there was never an Earth 2 because there was never a need for an Earth 2 because there was never a break in the timeline between the 50s and 60s.
Right, and therefore all these characters existed as passing off torches for every generation, and therefore we could have gotten Batman Beyond long before the cartoon happened.
Yeah, they probably would have needed to pass the torch sometime in like the 80s if everything had stayed. Like around the time of the British invasion in our timeline would have been when I would have maybe moved things along a little bit.
Yeah, and like they didn't do reboots or retcons, and basically, I mean, it is kind of the argument that they gave why they reboot it is basically so not so like people who are getting into comics aren't flooded with like
Yeah,
Uh,
but this is also a universe where the popularity of comics was never really scuttled because Frederick Wortham didn't meddle with them. So this is a universe where comics became as popular as something like video games or movies or TV.
yeah,
Because had Frederick Wortham not meddled, they probably would have stayed as popular as they were back in the 30s and 40s,
hmm
for at least for at least as long as anyone can, at least until around now.
yeah. Anyway, um, but yeah. So moving on because I was just having a side tangent there. Uh,
Mhm.
Batman Urban Legends is one of DC's new anthology series. In each issue, multiple creative teams share an episode of various ongoing stories starring characters under the Gotham City umbrella. Over several issues, writer Megan Fitzmartin, DC Superhero Girls, Future State Robin Eternal, and artist Belen Ortega, Sensational Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, have created Some of Our Parts, a story in which Tim Drake tries to defeat a mysterious new villain who captured his old friend Bernard. Some of our parts, Tim wrestles with an uncertainty in a way that has become core to his character over the last decade. He feels as though he doesn't know what he wants until Bernard, not knowing that Robin and Tim are the same person, wistfully refers to their interrupted dinner as a date, and Tim has a light bulb moment.
Good for Tim.
I'm gonna be honest on this. Sounds like really shit writing.
It does, but I mean, it's modern. It's modern big too, so it's kind of what were you expecting, unfortunately.
Um, at the end of this episode of the story, Bernard asks Tim out on a real date, and Tim happily accepts. Okay.
And again, why do I care?
Yeah, yeah, it's more or less. I don't. I'm not really reacting because more or less I just don't care. Like he's bisexual. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, if they were changing his sexuality altogether, that would be one thing.
Yeah.
But they're just adding another layer on to a character that makes perfect sense. So why do I care? Like again, the thing that pisses me off as a bisexual person when they change character sexualities, quote unquote, is when they flip the switch from straight to gay without ever stopping in the middle and considering bisexuality. Because that's not how sexuality works, you morons. If I have one apple and I have another apple, or if I have an apple and an orange, I now have two pieces of fruit. If I prefer guys and then I switch to preferring girls as well, then I have two sexualities, therefore I am bisexual. If I was straight and then suddenly realized that I liked the same gender as well, that's bisexuality. That's not switching sexualities, it's adding an element to your sexuality.
Mhm. Um, when Dave Will Wilgoss, my editor for Batman Urban Legends, reached out about doing another Tim story, I was thrilled. It's Martin told Polygon via email. We talked about where Tim has been versus where he was at the time and came to the conclusion that it needed to be a story about identity and discovery. What was next for Boy Wonder?
See, this I have a problem with. If this were just a thing that happened in a story, like Tim was, you know, saving the day and somebody asked him out, then that would be one thing. But there's a difference between this is just a thing that happened and this is a story about identity. Stop making so many goddamn meta commentaries, people. Tell a story about a character because you either care about the story, or care about the character, or care about the world, or some combination of the three. Like, because now you actually have pissed me off. Because the idea of Tim Drake, you know, getting some, as it were, and a guy just happening to be the one to ask him out, that I was actually mostly okay with. I was just like, oh, cool. Tim got asked out on a date, and now he's going out on a date. Cool. But now that you've added the extra wrinkle of the story is supposed to be about identity, now I'm pissed off because stories shouldn't be forced to be about meta commentary like that. They should be days in the life of these characters where possible. So now you've taken the otherwise innocuous casual thing that happened of, oh, Tim got asked out, he said yes, and the guy or the person who asked him out just happened to be a guy, and turned it into, we are hammering in the gayness into our story, derp. Dumbasses. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. She said she spent days thinking it over before emailing back to say, like, I don't know if this is something that can happen, but this is the story because it's the only story it can be. See, I don't believe that, and also, if you think that's the only story it can be, then you have a very limited writing capacity.
Yeah, and
Like,
once again,
I'm not trying to be. I'm not trying to be like. I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but I'm more speaking as a writer. If you can only do like effectively a romance story.
and even if you wanted to write a romance story, then write an actual romance story. Don't make it about identity. Just make it a love story. Like the thousands upon thousands of other love stories that just are love stories. Like when Harry Met Sally isn't about sexual exploration and identity, it's about boy meets girl, boy and girl fall in love, boy and girl have issues falling in love and the repercussions thereof, you know, rinse repeat for every rom-com in history. And speaking as a guy who likes gay romance novels, most of my favorite gay romance novels are like that too. If you looked at my Wattpad library right now, you would get a very, very clear idea of the kind of stories that I like in relation to gay romances. But they're not about identity, most of them. Most of them are just boy meets other boy, boys fall in love, and there are repercussions and consequences for doing so, or there's some outside force getting in the way, and then, story usually ends up with a happy ending, at least in the ones that I like. Um, why can't this just be a romance story where both parties just happen to be of the same gender? Or better yet, why can't it be a romance story between a specific character and another specific character? Why do we have to collectivize everything as though every gay person is an avatar of gayness, quote unquote? Because when two straight characters fall in love, it's not a story about straightness, it's just two characters who happen to be straight falling in love. Why can't that be the same standard for two gay people falling in love? These are the questions. Moving on.
Mm-hmm. Even after she got the go ahead, Fitzmaurice says it took time to absorb the idea that she was going to create a coming out story for a Robin. I mean, it's not really coming out, to be honest.
It's just somebody asked him out and he said yes. And there's no implication that he's only gay or that or that he was that he had some sort of changeover like Iceman. It's just Tim also might like guys. Oh my god, what a revelation, derp. Like this is just a thing that sometimes happens. Even to people sometimes later in life. Sometimes it takes Sometimes it takes a while for you to find somebody that makes you think about changing teams or whatever, but doesn't mean it doesn't happen. And is Tim Drake even that old now? Like, what?
Um,
How old is he in terms of the timeline?
I don't know. I'd assume 20s, possibly.
Okay, well, if he's in his 20s, then this is definitely early enough that he could still be like experimenting with his sexuality and whatnot. So it matters even less. Like if this were Tim Drake circa Batman Beyond future, where he's in like his 50s and he was dating someone, then that might be noteworthy in the sense that it took him 50 years to find somebody that made him think about swinging the other way, but that does still happen.
I mean, in them and beyond, he's got kids and wife, so it's kind of
Yeah, that would complicate things if he had a lover at all, let alone if it were a male one. But that's more to do with the fact that that would technically be infidelity to his wife and kids, more so than ew, he's dating a guy, derp. Moving on.
yeah. All right. Uh, and a very established version of Robin at that. I fully sat on the floor of my apartment for a solid 2 minutes in happiness as it sunk in. Ultimately, this wouldn't have happened without champions of DC like Dave and James Tinian Worth. And I
See,
hope,
the thing that's shocking me and appalling me in this particular instance is her reaction to writing this, um, more than anything else. Because, sweetheart, it's not 19 freaking 80 anymore. If this were 19 freaking 80 during the AIDS epidemic, where there was genuine homophobia for a hot minute, that would be one thing. But it's 20 freaking 21. Most people are indifferent. Some people just actively refuse to care, and some people are just kind of okay with it. No one, like, short of, you know, extremely southern parts of Alabama or Texas or something, where these people are probably not the kinds of people who like reading comics anyway. Most people don't care. And even if those people did care, it's long since stopped being shocking because every franchise has the token gay one now. And usually like two or three of them, come to think of it. Moving forward.
and I hope it is as meaningful for others as it has been for me.
No, speaking as the gay one, it's not meaningful. In fact, the only thing that annoys me about this is your reaction to it, acting as though this is still some super edgy, super risque, super sociopolitically active statement. Like, no, dude just had a date with a person who happened to be another dude. Good for him. It's an interesting layer to the story. Can we focus maybe on the things that we focus on in every other romance story now, please? Like, you know, is Tim nervous to go on this date with this other guy? Are they, the article suggests they're old friends, so is it kind of a like, did Tim have like a childhood crush on this kid? Or like, those are the things that I'm more interested in regards to romance stories, is the um complications that occur when you date someone. Because we've all been there. We've all been, at least hypothetically, to that place where it's like, oh my God, what if I ask this person out and they say yes? What am I gonna wear? Is my hair all right? Is this person someone I have a long history with, or is it someone I just met at a bar? Those are the kind of stories or those are the kind of things that make romance stories interesting. It has nothing whatsoever to do with their sexuality.
Hey, don't
Sorry, ranting, I know.
Now, can I say something?
Sure.
That was super gay.
I am aware. And thank you. I feel like I should be doing the like stereotypical bow thing.
Oh, yeah, I got nothing to say. You pretty much covered all the points for you. Kit Kane is the most prominent, canonically queer member of the sprawling Bat family. Mainly because, like all the others, like the sexuality thing hasn't really been a thing that matters.
Yeah, and or they're all such nerfed shut-ins they don't really have time for dating, period.
I think there was one, but granted that, like Blue Jay, was it?
Hmm.
Was that a Mockingbird or Blue Jay? I'm not entirely sure which one. Kind of a relatively new sidekick, um, who has a gay brother that she looks after. Like they were two abandoned kids in like Gotham. That she's like the older. I don't know if she was the older, or I think she was the older sister that uh, looked after her brother. And again, this is a whole story, and I'm going on a tangent here just to prove a point, I suppose.
Hmm.
Mainly because like the whole thing of like sexuality for a Bat family member, just like as race is, if we're going from the last article,
Yeah,
is not really a factor. It's an interesting part of the character and makes them
yeah.
more unique.
Demographics are mostly just irrelevant.
Yeah, but again with like Blue Jay, and again like I said, her brother is gay, but this goes a long way. This is important. She is a she worked as like an electrical worker in Gotham,
Hmm.
and she has that haircut that everyone knows about.
The haircut makes you look like you lost a argument with a sentient razor.
I don't know what like the actual term for it is. I don't think it looks bad. I just think it only works for a certain number of people.
Hmm.
Like in my opinion, but that's besides the point.
I do generally speaking think it looks bad. I think it always reminds me of that one episode of Danny Phantom where ec ectoplasm gets spilled on a bunch of old appliances and stuff, and they start becoming like living appliances, and one of them is a old like set of electric shears.
To be fair, I think it's how it's styled
Hmm.
is the big thing. But again, besides the point. Oh, Bluebird and the actual character is called Harper Row. Okay, it's mentioned here in the article. But
Hmm.
yeah, Harper. She found like all like through like working in like the sewers of Gotham and the electrical lines. She was able to find like the tunnels that Batman uses to get around Gotham. Eventually,
Hmm.
figuring out his identity.
Hmm.
So through sheer happenstance, honestly.
Hmm.
But okay, so her, if I remember the story correctly, her brother was violently attacked by some street hooligans, and
Hmm.
they were homophobes. I'm not gonna lie about that. That's because that shit happens. You know, it happens. Like it's a thing that happens.
Yeah, some people will always be morons.
Yeah, and they, I don't know if they like used a razor to cut in a specific derogatory term into the brother's head, like shaved it into his head. Yeah, it's the whole thing. Don't. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
like you said, people will be morons even in Gotham.
Yeah, and for the record, there are people who still think like that, but they are vanishingly few and far between, and they're morons. Just
Mhm.
like people who care about race in either direction are generally morons.
But yeah, she wanted to show her support for her brother, so she did shave half her head in like the same side that he had that thing carved into his.
Okay,
And
well that makes more sense then. It's not a willfully atypical like fashion choice she's making. It's kind of like how sometimes if kids get diagnosed with cancer and therefore have to obviously shave off all their hair, their families or people who in their communities will shave their heads in solidarity.
yeah,
That kind of makes sense.
yeah, but again, I'm just like I'm I'm just trying to prove the point that he is she is an interesting character that has a gay brother, and she is like that doesn't matter to her. She's not like she's just there for her brother. Is the thing.
Mhm.
And again, the point I'm trying to get across is the sexuality thing, the gender, the race. And it again to the Bat family, it's not really what matters. What
Yeah,
matters is well,
the
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 concept.
principles and the ideas, yeah.
Yeah, and like I guess kind of the concept of the found family of this kind of family bounded by like personal tragedy and finding comfort with those that have both still experiencing it and have
Hmm.
gone through it and have overcome it.
Hmm.
She hasn't been used much though in the comics, to my knowledge, which is a shame
Hmm.
because I think it's an interesting character. Like she even created her own stuff. Like I said, she has like a degree in electrical engineering and like invented her own tech.
Hmm.
It was cool in my opinion. So kind of MacGyvering her way into the Bat family.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess moving on.
Yes.
Okay, so Kate Kane is the most prominent canonically queer member of the
You
Sprawling
read
Bat.
that already.
Sorry. She debuted as Batwoman in 2006 in the company's year-long weekly TV-style series 52, and immediately garnered shock headlines.
Really?
To be fair, I don't think you and I were really paying attention to comics back then, or at least I wasn't.
I was, but I don't remember any shock headlines. But then again, I mostly just enjoyed comics. I didn't really get into the whole news angle mostly, except for like this character's like I kept track of events, but I didn't really pay attention to like the commentary at scene,
Yeah.
like because I didn't really care what
Well, also,
the like
I don't think
critical consensus was or anything.
in 2006 she would have been like maybe 10 or so years old.
Yeah, and the Bat family was never my strong point. Like I said, my flavor was always either mystical or cosmic weirdness. So like I,
Yeah,
I, w- I was more excited when, oh hey, Doctor Strange has a new series, or oh hey, they're doing a reboot of Eternals with Neil Gaiman, or something like that was more my cup of tea.
yeah.
Or
So,
oh hey, I need to research Golden Age heroes and find out
and
the
I
next cool pop character or something.
and to be completely fair, I did not get into comics until like early 2010s. So
Shame.
I had a lot of shit going on. Okay.
I know. I was just joking.
Yeah. Even though she ultimately had a fairly minor role. Um, Gotham City has slowly become a much queerer place since her introduction, but mostly with villains and secondary characters. Okay, so
Not every person on Earth is going to be a major character. Sorry.
yeah, and also like villains. I mean, like I'm not advocating for this, but because of like the things from back then,
Hmm.
villains were like you couldn't queer code the protagonist. You had to queer code the
Because evangelical moralists would have flipped their shit.
yeah. And again, villains honestly don't care about societal norms, so they can do whatever they want because they choose.
Yeah, it makes it actually a little bit easier for a villain to come out because it's not like they were regarded as moral people to begin with. It's kind of like how um after the first time somebody told me I was going to hell for practicing magic, I kind of just stopped giving a fuck altogether about what people think because after that it's just like, well, some people are morons and I'm going to continue doing my own thing because no one is going to change me. So yeah.
But queer replace really, God, that's
Yeah, it's a really awkward, terrible phrase, and I hate it. It sounds awful to my ears.
uh,
But
okay. So moving on.
yeah,
Yeah. The subtext of Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy was finally allowed to be text in the early 2010s. Really? That only that long ago? That's actually surprising.
considering that Harley has always been kind of an out there character, and let's be entirely honest here, the queer coding for Harley and Ivy in Batman the Animated Series was long time coming. Um, yeah, it really should have been before this.
I
Because
I mean to be fair, I mean I'm sure like anyone with a brain who wants the scenes with those characters. Even I'm
especially
not,
given how Joker reacted like a jealous, dumped boyfriend.
yeah. But to be fair, I always kind of just akin to them as like really, really good friends.
I fully,
It's not that like I'm against the relationship, like their actual romantic relationship. It's just like I don't know, like not every friendship has to turn into a romantic one, you know?
that's true, but I'm similar, but a little bit different. I've always just imagined them as friends with benefits. Like I don't think there's ever been a time when Ivy or Harley refer to each other as girlfriends, except for in like the platonic sense that a lot of women use.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I get your point, and I understand.
but I can definitely see a situation where like maybe if they had like an adult sleepover or something, they probably fooled around just because why not?
Yeah, yeah, I could totally see that. Again,
Especially what with Harley's very abusive boyfriend there.
yeah. To be fair, I mean, you could make an argument, for, especially like in the animated series and stuff, is that Harley did kind of trade one abusive partner for another. I mean, like Ivy isn't like as bad, obviously, but she is more psychological.
I always liked them together. I didn't
No,
really
I do too. It's
see
just like
that as
you could
abusive.
you could make an argument at least. Like
Well,
it's
I mean,
more subtle, I think.
Harley herself is a villain, so she's gonna end up with a villain no matter she's which way she goes because
Okay, fair.
that's just her circle of friends and acquaintances.
Yeah, again, fair.
Although it would be an interesting story to have Harley Quinn fall for somebody who is a hero, and then have that be the main conflict of the story of a hero dating a villain rather than um, homosexuality every 5 minutes.
Yeah, they have done those stories before, but they never work. Like they never work out. I mean, for the characters,
Right.
which is sad.
Yeah. Which brings up an interesting question. Which hero character would which female hero character would you pair up Harley with.
Oh, female. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. That's kind of tough.
This is just off the top of my head. Harley Quinn and Power Girl dating would be interesting.
Yeah, I was thinking Power Girl, but I wasn't entirely sure. Like
Well, I guess Jinx then, because we were on the same page again.
well, it was either her or Wonder Woman, but
I couldn't see Diana dating Harley.
yeah, neither.
I don't think their personalities would mesh very well at all.
Plus, they have Power Girl and Harley have had interactions in the comics before.
Mm-hmm.
Although Kara does seem to be very annoyed by Harley a lot. So
Well, but maybe it was the kind of the annoyance flirtation thing of like, I hate your guts, but I secretly find it endearing. God damn it.
yeah, it's really tough. Like it's hard because like a lot of like superheroines are just very like in personality wise. I don't see you could gel that easily with Harley.
Honestly, I could see Harley and Stargirl getting along, but I think Harley is older than Stargirl, and I
Yeah,
don't want.
a lot
Yeah,
older.
I don't want. I don't want that kind of relationship because you leave my innocent cosmic girl alone there, Harley.
I'd say Black Canary, but one, she's with Green Arrow, and two, they're more like honestly, like legit just friends.
Honestly, from this is just going off of Justice League the animated series, but it really seemed like Cersei and Zatanna got along really well. That would be an interesting.
Okay, we went on a fucking tangent there.
We did.
Okay. Before she nearly married Batman, that hurts. Catwoman briefly had a girlfriend. I did not know that. But yeah, honestly, she doesn't surprise me that she's bisexual.
Yeah,
She's
she's very in touch with her sexuality, so
yeah,
it doesn't surprise anyone. I don't think.
she's a femme fatale. So
Yeah, emphasis on the femme apparently.
yeah.
Although let's be entirely honest about this. I imagine Catwoman is probably a top.
Moving on.
I mean, for fuck's sake, she used a whip for a lot of years.
I'm not justifying that with an answer. Let's go. Let's go on.
Okay.
Plus, everyone knows. Come on, it's not that.
Yeah, and let's also be honest about. I'm imagining that whip probably made a few appearances in some scenarios, but let's move on.
You got a dirty mind, Dalton.
What, you're telling me you don't think Catwoman is into BDSM?
Moving on. Midnighter became a recurrent supporting character in Nightwing stories. I really need to check out some Authority comics because I'm very intrigued by these characters. Like, I know they're very much like a Justice League, like the Authority, like, you know, like Midnighter and Apollo are like Batman and Superman if they were a gay couple.
Mm-hmm.
Also, they're apparently like a very sweet couple from everything I've been able to look into.
Oh.
Like, they even have an adopted daughter.
Yeah, I need to look into them as well. Although, obviously, you guys know my preferences by now. I doubt they will take the sweetest gay couple in comics award away from Hulkling and Wiccan.
Yeah. The thing is, though, they do kill people. So, I mean, very.
Well, a family that slays together stays together.
I mean, they're very bad people, you know, supervillains and stuff.
Well, I mean, villains deserve to be happy too.
Police detectives Renee Montoya and Maggie Sawyer, and the young vigilante Bluebird / Harper Rowe flitted in and out of continuity.
That's mostly due to the continuity being stupid.
Well, also just because like people don't, I don't know why people don't touch them. They're really cool characters.
For the same reason they don't touch Hulkling and Wickham. They can't get more clout out. It's oh, and I can't believe I didn't mention this in the previous article we were covering with the Black Bruce Wayne thing. For some reason they don't like making original characters of these diverse demographics because there's more clout in converting the mainstay character. Because remember, to these people, art is nothing but a means to an end. So you can't, if the character isn't going to have clout, then why bother? Let's just change the one that does have clout for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking annoys me because that entire art is a means to an end
Again,
mindset is fucking stupid.
Right. Sorry, no, it's just like again with like my gripes with like Kate Kane, like the actual character in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a really fucking cool character, and they stuck with that character from the comics and put it on the show.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. They never have any regard for characters' personalities. They only ever turn them into avatars of the identity. Like they turn black characters into avatars of blackness. They turn gay characters into avatars for gayness. Their own personalities never really factor in. And what's worse is in cases where they've changed characters who had an established preference one way or the other, or had an established identity one way or the other, they change the personality along with it rather than keeping the personality consistent and just making this a new aspect of the character.
Yeah.
Example, of course, being Iceman.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't at all flamboyant for many years, but the second he realized he was gay, it was all Will and Grace bullshit.
Right. Also, just this, like, I have nothing against people like changing aspects of a character for a reason, either for the story or for the character themselves. Mm-hmm. I do that all the time when I do rewrites and stuff.
Right.
Big thing you gotta do is make sure you keep the essential core of the character.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I was doing my rewrite of Batwoman, and again, I don't know, it's like one of my favorite videos, honestly. I never really changed the core of her character. Like Kate Kane is not a detective; she is a soldier.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not having her like do extreme detective work.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, have her develop her skills throughout the series.
Yeah, if she truly needs them or truly wants to develop them, that's one. Like, I could see a situation where she goes to her cousin and it's like, "Can you teach me how to do this, so I can do it better?"
Yeah.
It's like with the fighting thing. Like, I can imagine a bunch of situations where, Kate and Bruce hang out just to spar with each other.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, they took away her guns for the show.
Yeah.
Like, Batwoman, like Kate King Batwoman uses guns. It's a thing.
Yeah, she's not just a gender flip Bruce.
Oh my god, you remember that line they used? A female Bruce Wayne?
Yeah, or the suit will be perfect when it fits a woman. Grr.
I'm so glad I cut that out when I did that re-edit. Well, when it fits a woman part, like when it will be is like good enough. Plus, it felt like that line was just added for the sake of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
it's because we have to turn this character into the avatar of feminism.
I felt so bad for Ruby Rose.
Yeah.
Great actress, seriously.
Mhm.
Stuck with shit. Anyway, at the same time, Tim Drake was struggling to find a new editorial niche in Batman stories from his creation in 1989 until the late 2000s. Huh.
I didn't realize Tim Drake was that recent. I thought he was older than that.
Yeah, it's at least the mid 80s.
Yeah.
That really is surprising. Also, like he came out this. Also, he was created the same year like Batman '89 came out.
Yeah. Which is really weird, honestly.
Yeah.
But
Dick Grayson was the original Robin. Jason Todd was the Robin who died, and Tim was the youngest Robin, Batman's partner. Yeah. That's the funniest thing. Dick Grayson is like the son of Bruce Wayne.
yeah.
Jason Todd is Batman's greatest failure,
Hmm.
and Tim Drake is Batman's greatest partner.
Damian Wayne is the emo disaster of the family.
Son of Batman, at least.
Well, but I mean, again, if we're going by the surrogate family model, then I think Dick already has that covered.
Well, no,
The, the,
Dick is
the,
the son of Bruce Wayne, like legit Bruce Wayne.
mm,
Like again with everything I discussed and how Dick can like be able to take off the cowl and not be consumed by the mission of Batman
mhm.
that grew past his trauma and all that. That is like Bruce Wayne. That's what Bruce Wayne wanted.
The way I'd phrase it is if they were actually um his sons, Dick would be the golden boy, Jason would be the problem child, and um and Damien would be the emo kid. They think about sending me to therapy a lot.
Mm-hmm. Um, Tim's. Oh, I read that. Sorry. More independent than Dick and more empathetic than Jason. Tim simply was Robin for 2 decades of readers, as well as the enormous audience of Batman the Animated Series. Granted, they just made him Jason Todd in that series.
Yeah, they edited out Jason Todd entirely because
Which is weird because, like, if you put in the context of, like, the killing, Return of the Joker and, like, what was done, it's honestly even more fucked than what actually happened with Jason
yeah.
in the comics.
But that is something that does belong to Tim Drake. Tim Drake was the Return of the Joker Robin.
Yeah, dude. Like,
Sur-
it's
survived torture by the hands of the Joker. That's honestly more impressive than being killed by the Joker because and
no,
any
he didn't survive. He didn't survive being tortured by the Joker. He was
yeah.
broken by the Joker. Became a new Joker. Granted,
Uh-huh.
it's more complicated than that, but
Yeah, there's sci-fi bullshit involved, but um it took years to deprogram him after Junior happened.
God, that was like that's one of the most disturbing things I saw as a
Return of the Joker is an excellent capstone for the Joker story in the
DC.
DC animated universe.
Yeah. But no, like imagine if it was Jason Todd that it happened to.
Kid just can't catch a break. God damn it.
Yeah, and like I don't know, it's just like imagine like after that he became the Red Hood after that to spite the Joker.
Eee. Or or if the psychological imprint the Joker left on him um, made him become the Red Hood.
Yeah. So many interesting methods you could go about. But no, yeah, that is a Tim Drake thing, and it's just like it's like I know we like give a lot of shit to Batman, but you can't deny this. He has a lot of great stories.
Yeah,
Granted,
and
it's mostly the great stories that happen are not really about Batman himself, but more
Yeah,
so.
they surround Batman or are brought about by his rogues.
Yeah.
But
Anyway,
I mean, there's a reason why the saying goes, "Every great hero needs a great villain," and
yep.
on the metric of great villains, you honestly can't really do better than Batman.
Shall we?
Yep.
Okay. That changed with the introduction of Damian Wayne in 2006, created by Grant Morrison and Andy Kubert, who was immediately installed in Tim's place as Robin. Wow, only 2006? At least throughout the early 2000s.
Yeah, I feel old now.
Huh. Okay. No longer the youngest Robin or even Batman's main partner, DC has seemed to struggle to find Tim's new niche. 2009 saw him adopt the identity of Red Robin, like the burger chain. I never really got that. I mean, like, I didn't mind the name. Honestly, I would have preferred if he found another one like Dick did.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't put that together with the burger chain until someone said that. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I guess he kind of is named after the thing now. But yeah, he should have found a new identity.
I mean,
Like
kind of did with Red Robin, but also,
I mean, Speedy became Arsenal. Um, Dick became Nightwing. I'm trying to think of other sidekicks that have kind of become their own thing. Um,
mm,
Stargirl is Stargirl instead of the second Star Spangled Kid.
Star, Aqualad, the Garth one became Tempest. Hello?
Yes.
And you, something weird happened there. Whatever.
Yeah, it glitched out on my end too. I don't know whose end that was on.
I was gonna say, the Garth Aqualad
No,
became.
no, I heard you. I said yeah.
Oh, okay.
He became Tempest.
Mm-hmm. Donna Troy was Wonder Girl, then became Donna Troy.
Hmm.
Superboy? No, I didn't really become anything actually.
Yeah, he didn't really grow beyond that yet.
Um, 2011's New 52 reboot tried a drastic revamp of his origin story, but 2016's Rebirth relaunched restored the original one. Most recently, in the pages of Young Justice, Tim said he was going to start uh, going by the codename Drake instead of Red Robin, but it seems that Infinite Frontiers changes have included forgetting that ever happened and just calling him Robin again. That I'm honestly just gonna chop that up so no one has any fucking idea what they're doing over there.
Yeah, stop rebooting the damn universe, please.
We both know they're not going to.
No, both Marvel and DC are gonna have 1,000 different world-ending crossovers a year, and none of them are gonna matter because reasons. This is Gnome Khaleesi.
Mm-hmm. After 15 years of flux, Tim's clearest niche is that he's the Robin who doesn't know where he fits in the Bat family. A character who is consistently put in the position of interrogating his own identity, but who has never found a lasting solution. That alone could be enough to make him a point of identification for queer fans.
Or anyone.
Yeah. Um, but Tim has a long history of being read as not completely straight thanks to the fandom affection for pairing him up with fellow Teen Titan and easily queer character Connor Kent, the Superboy of the 1990s. Again, I just kind of
I didn't realize that was a thing, but I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
no, I'm not either. It's just like again, until I'm more of along the lines of until they actually show me it, I'm just assuming they're really good friends.
I mean, again, I'm fine with it either way.
Yeah,
Though I'm interested to see how that relationship works now. Because I mean,
stop,
Superboy being Superboy
stop
and stuff.
all the fucking time, man. But yeah,
What
no,
what every Superman fanboy in the history of comics is allowed to think about the how the hell would um Clark and Lois's relationship work, but I'm not allowed to even speculate about how the fuck Connor and Tim make that work without it being an issue.
honestly, if you brought up the other one, if you brought up the former, I'd still say, shut the fuck up.
Uh-huh.
Mainly, again, I'm just until there's proof shown to me, like legit confirmed, confirmate, confirmation.
Confirmation.
Thank you. Until there's like legit confirmation about it, I just leave it up to like fanfic writers, the fandom, and interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer legitimate. I prefer legitimate evidence before I get invested into a relationship.
Some it's like with any kind of character. So, sometimes, especially if there's like a spark between characters, on some of it you can't help but think, will you two just get together already? God damn it!
No, I agree with that. It's just again, and this goes with like any type of romance really. Until like I see it actually happen,
Mm-hmm.
I one I don't really care. Two, I don't consider there a relationship there.
Mm. I guess I'm a little bit more shippy than you then, because I
You
because
are
I
so.
well, this is true. Um, but yeah, I often when characters have that kind of bond, it's like, will you two just screw already?
Again, I mostly just assume until like I'm shown otherwise. Just a really good friendship.
I mean, either can work, and there's a lot of gray area, like with
Yeah, no.
the
Again,
friends with benefits thing. But
I agree. Again, it's just like that's how I see it.
hmm.
Plus, I just don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want. I just don't want to try and ship characters. Is the thing.
Because knowing you, if anything ever happens to someone you shipped and they weren't allowed to be in a relationship, you'd go on a rewriting spree.
No, it just. I don't want. Dude, if I start shipping, it's a slippery slope down fandoms, man.
This is fair. Certain groups of fandom, cough cough Tumblr,
Yeah,
make
I'm not. I
make
ain't about that ship.
desiring two characters getting together romantically next to impossible.
Yeah, it just gets fucking. It gets fucking out of control. That's why I prefer not to do any shipping. I mean, I kind of did one, but that was just for the sake of the story and the characters in a rewrite I did. People who don't know, it's Jason Todd and Raven from my Titans rewrite,
Hmm.
but not the characters from the actual Titan show because that show was utter fucking garbage.
It's not good. There are basically no characters in it.
Dude, the writing is so bad. Anyway, moving on.
Mhm.
The greatest thing about working with an established IP, Fitzmartin told Polygon, is that there are so many story decisions for characters that have already been made for you, often by people much smarter than you. Some of our parts happen because this is who Tim is. I love this character very much, and I went back to read as much as I could to do Robin justice. It became clear this is the story Tim needed to tell. Not really.
I mean, I'm glad that someone actually cared about the character. That's a step up from usual, where they're just a means to an end. But I
Yeah.
disagree that you absolutely had to tell this story. Now, granted, if you wanted to tell a story where somebody asked him out and he said yes, and the other guy or the other person just happened to be a dude, then I wouldn't care. As I previously said, it's the we
Yeah.
have to make this about his identity crap that bothers me. It's like, why straight characters you can just tell romance stories with. Why can't you just tell a romance story that happens to have two girls or two guys in it? Why can't we focus on, you know, do these characters work as a couple? You know, who's having butterflies? Um, which is the more dominant party in the relationship? All the things that you normally think of when you think of relationships. Why can't those kind of stories just be told with gay characters? Why can't you just have a gay romance? Why does it have to be about the gayness? Because I can tell you, as a gay person, it pisses me right the fuck off that I can't just look at a gay romance and be like, have the Sam and Diane from Cheers thing of like, I hope they get together, or I can't believe so and so cheated on so and so, or the kinds of things you get when you care about characters' relationships. It always has to be a coming out story, and then after the coming out story, there has to be the dealing with homophobia story, and I'm sick of it. If you want to tell gay romance stories, tell gay romance stories just like every other kind of romance story, please.
Yep. Anyway.
Moving on.
Yep. Okay. And for those itching to update various fan wikis and lists, Fitzmartin says that Tim hasn't put a label on himself yet, nor does the story delegitimize his decades-long off-again, on-again relationship with fellow teen superhero Stephanie Brown / spoiler.
Okay, so if he hasn't put a label on it yet, then your headline is a lie because he didn't come out. Because you don't come out until after you know what you are, or at least have some idea what you are.
Honestly, I prefer that there wouldn't be a label.
And two, if he previously dated Stephanie Brown, then at most, dude is bisexual. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or pansexual, I guess, if you want to stretch it, but god damn it. Shit.
Yeah, there's only one person, like only one character in comics that I know is, like, for a fact is pansexual.
Deadpool.
God damn you! I wanted fuck. But yeah, that guy will fuck anything, like even death itself.
Although, to be fair, he'll have to get in line behind Thanos.
See, that's the one thing I like about like the changes they've done to characters in, to like one of the characters in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no offense to like comic Thanos, but motherfucker, kind of a simp.
Well, I mean, to be fair, death simps for Deadpool, which is the ironic thing about the death Thanos and Deadpool thing. Like Thanos literally almost killed half the life in the universe just to get a date with, or just to get the respect of Death. Meanwhile, Death is dreaming of that mutate dick.
That is a fucking image. Anyway, I wanted to pay tribute to the fact that sexuality is a journey. Fitzmartin to the Polygon. To be clear, his feelings for Stephanie have been / are 100% real, as are his feelings for Bernard. However, Tim is still figuring himself out. I don't think he has the language for it all yet.
Okay, so this isn't a coming out story, and the headline was a lie.
Yeah. And again, like, I just don't care, and like, I think everyone just blew this out of proportion.
Yeah, and I hate this phrase, but on both sides, it was very, very dumb because you had one side going, they changed the character, even though there's no confirmation they changed the character, and you had the other side going, they didn't make the character identity based enough. They're ugh.
There's no winning in this scenario.
Yeah. The only win scenario would have been, Bernard going, "Hey Tim, we want to go out," and Tim going, "Sure," and then treating it like a normal goddamn relationship in any other romance story ever written,
Yeah,
rather than making it about identity.
I'm not. I don't know. I don't really care. Again, it's not really something I care about, man, because like Tim Drake is not a Robin that I paid close attention to, unfortunately.
No, my default Robin has been and probably will always be Dick Grayson.
And for me, again, it's always just going to be Jason Todd, just because like I like his journey and like, again, he shows the fallibility of Batman and his strict moral code.
Like, I like Jason Todd, but I normally associate him more with Red Hood than I do Robin.
That's fair. That's fair. And I think that is just kind of a problem with the writers that have ever tried to do like Jason Todd stories as Robin.
Yeah, Jason Todd has always been screwed. I think that the first time they quote unquote killed Jason off, the fan base was basically baying for blood. And then they basically forgot that Jason Todd existed and thought that people had actually killed off Dick Grayson. So yeah, Jason Todd has always gotten the shit end of the stick.
Yeah, which is why, like, if I was ever given charge of the Titan series, I would have made Jason Todd like the main character for like the first 3 seasons,
Hmm.
and like well, granted, the 3rd season would have been the death in the family story arc.
Mm-hmm.
Or we would have seen for most of the season Jason Todd be fucking psychologically and physically tortured by the Joker,
Yeah.
and like see his downward spiral into Red Hood.
Yep. His one very 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 bad day.
Yeah, and again, like he's an interesting character, and I think you could make him an interesting Robin if you're willing to put in the work.
Hmm.
Well, granted, that could be said about any character at all.
Mm-hmm.
Make him interesting if you put in the work too.
Yeah, you just have to care and know enough about human nature to understand where the fucking rules are.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah. Ahem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, just because of time and stuff and all tangents and things we were going on, we're gonna call it for tonight. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avidazay, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Fuck off.